Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Abyss Invasion, I am in charge of Dark Authority. Chapter 31. When Qin Jinian rushed to the police station, Lin Yun was crying inside. She begged with tears streaming down her face, please help me find Ningning. You must help me find her. Otherwise, I can't survive either. Woo woo. The helpless cries made people handling other business in the police station look sideways and whisper. Lin Yun was accompanied by two women. One was in her 40s, wearing a pair of black-rimmed glasses and a solemn look on her face. They were communicating with the police. The other one is obviously younger, looking like he is only in his 20s. Although his appearance is ordinary, he is better than youth. She accompanied Lin Yun throughout the whole process, holding her hand tightly with both hands, but her expression was not only anxious, but also a bit panicked and at a loss. Sister Yun. Qin Jinian walked over quickly. Xiao Nian. When Lin Yun saw Qin Jinian, she felt as if she had met her relatives all of a sudden. After calling out, she cried and said, Ning is lost. Sister Yun, don't worry, are you lost? Where did you get lost? What did the police say? Although Qin Jinian was anxious, he was very calm at the moment. He comforted Lin Yun and then asked. She got lost during lunch break at school. Sister Yun said out of breath while crying. Lunch break. Qin Jinian was startled, then frowned and realized something was wrong. Isn't lunch break at noon? It's already afternoon, why did you come to report the crime? After saying this, Lin Yun stopped crying for a moment, and then looked angrily at the girl next to her. The girl's face paled for a moment, and then she lowered her head, blaming herself, crying, and a little helpless, yes, I'm sorry. When I found out, it was already 2:30 in the afternoon. Babies at 2 o'clock I woke up halfway and realized that Ning was missing. Then the school teacher immediately searched the school, but couldn't find it, so he called the police. It took some time. Who is this? Qin Jinian had some guesses in his mind and asked anyway. I am Ning's teacher. The girl lowered her head and answered. Ning is 5.5 years old and studying in kindergarten. The kindergarten is not far from Tongmuki community and is a full-time private kindergarten. There is no surveillance in the school. Yes, there are surveillance cameras in every class and dormitory in the school. There are surveillance cameras outside the teaching building and at the school entrance. Then Ning was not photographed. It was photographed. Ning suddenly woke up around 1 o'clock at noon, then put on her clothes and went out. Then she went downstairs alone and walked out of the teaching building. Finally, she was seen walking to a surveillance blind spot alone, and then, we never saw him again. The teacher replied quickly. Qin Jinian suddenly frowned. In other words, Ning got lost by herself. And it was during lunch break. Where were you at that time? The teacher's face suddenly turned pale again, and after his mouth squirmed, he lowered his head, full of self-blame. I was a little tired at the time, so I fell asleep in a daze. I was also in the dormitory. Qin Jinian's brows tightened again. In other words, Ning disappeared inexplicably in a kindergarten full of surveillance cameras and even teachers. He was full of confusion, but he had no clue at the moment. He turned around and asked Lin Yun, Sister Yun, how long has it been since you called the police? What did the police say? I just called the police when I picked up Ning after get off work. It's been about an hour since I sent someone to investigate. But I don't know the details yet. Maybe it was because Qin Jinian was here, at least someone she was familiar with, which gave her a feeling of dependence. Although her voice was still trembling and crying, she no longer just cried like before. But Qin Jinian's heart sank when he heard this. An hour had passed and there was still no news from the police, which meant that he had not been found yet. But where can a 5-year-old girl go in a kindergarten in the city center? If you just get lost, you should be able to find it within an hour. It hasn't been found yet, which means, things are developing in a very worrying direction. Where is the surveillance video now? Can I see it? Qin Jinian asked Lin Yun. Just listening to the teacher's dictation, Qin Jinian couldn't grasp many key points. He wanted to watch the video. Lin Yun nodded quickly and then looked at the teacher. The girl quickly stood up and said, all surveillance videos have been handed over to the police. I will ask the police. After saying that, she quickly walked towards the middle-aged woman in black frame and the policemen who were communicating. Lin Yun covered her face with her hands, her emotions seemed a little unbearable. Ning Ning, Ning Ning. If something happens to Ning Ning, I won't be able to live either. Qin Jinian walked over, patted her shoulder gently, and said in a calm voice, Sister Yun, don't worry yet, the police are thinking of a way, and they will definitely find Ning Ning. Lin Yun raised her head with tears in her eyes and wanted to say something. The police and a middle-aged woman with black-rimmed glasses had already walked over. Do you want to watch the surveillance? Or you? The police asked Qin Jinian. Before Qin Jinian could answer, Lin Yun had already answered, he is my brother. Qin Jinian was startled for a moment, but did not deny it. Instead, he nodded and asked, can I see the surveillance camera? In principle, it's not allowed. But, since you are a family member, it doesn't matter. Come with me. The policeman thought for a moment and nodded, then led several people to an office. All the surveillance cameras in the school today are here. Xiao Li, help us retrieve the surveillance video sent from Sunshine Kindergarten today. The middle-aged policeman said. Okay. A younger policeman sitting in front of the computer responded. Soon, several surveillance images were projected on the computer screen in front of him. There are a lot of pictures, almost 50 or 60, which shows that there is really a lot of surveillance in this school. Which one is the bedroom scene? Qin Jinian stepped forward to take a look. This. The middle-aged policeman quickly called Qin Jinian and zoomed in. Then I saw a very warmly decorated bedroom. The walls were pink, with many stickers of stars, the moon, and various small animals on it. Ning Ning's bed is here. The teacher's voice trembled and he pointed to a location. These beds are all bunk beds, and Ning Ning's position is on the bottom bunk near the window. Qin Jinian looked over, and the police pulled him again. After a while, Qin Jinian saw that Ning Ning suddenly moved on the small bed, and then began to dress herself. After putting on her clothes and shoes, she got up and walked to the bedroom door alone. The teacher is also in the picture, lying on a small table at the door of the dormitory, seemingly asleep. Ning Ning walked past the teacher without saying a word and walked towards the door. Qin Jinian suddenly narrowed his eyes slightly. Stop. The policeman quickly pressed the pause button. What happened? Did you find anything? Qin Jinian frowned and looked at Ning Ning in the picture, then looked at the policeman and said, didn't you notice? There seems to be something wrong with Ning Ning's expression. Something's wrong. The policeman quickly looked at it seriously, but after looking at it for a while, he frowned and said, the picture quality is not very clear, but it looks like nothing is wrong, right? No, something is wrong. The way you look at her is very dull. Qin Jinian pointed to Ning Ning's eyes, which were frozen in the picture. What impressed Qin Jinian most about Ning Ning was her big, bright eyes, which were very smart. But at this moment, Ning Ning's eyes in the picture were dull. Sluggish. The policeman also frowned. He looked more carefully, but after looking for a while, he still shook his head. I didn't see it. Qin Jinian. Forget it, let's keep playing. Next is the video outside the door, right? Qin Jinian did not continue to delve deeper, he planned to continue taking a look. Wait until you watch the video. In the next 10 minutes, Qin Jinian finished watching the remaining 7 videos. After reading it, he frowned and fell into deep thought. Xiaonian, how are you? Did you find anything? Lin Yun's voice was trembling with some expectation. Qin Jinian paused for a moment, then gave Lin Yun a comforting look. He did not answer, but looked at the police and asked, Officer, it has been more than an hour now. Do we know the situation at the scene now? After the policeman was silent for a moment, he nodded and said, after receiving the case, we rushed to the scene as soon as possible, and then arranged for some people to go to the traffic police, and ask them to obtain the surveillance situation of the surrounding streets. Also some people went to nearby stores to see if the store's surveillance found anything. But so far, nothing has been found. How could this happen? Lin Yun's face suddenly turned pale, and then she cried, how could such a big child just disappear after saying she didn't see her? She was in school, there were so many teachers, so many teachers. But, Lin Yun's question made the girl and the middle-aged woman with black-rimmed glasses lower their heads. Then the middle-aged woman with black-rimmed glasses gritted her teeth and said, Mother Ningning, don't worry, our school is always convenient. We are arranging people to search nearby. The police officers are also working hard, we will definitely find Ning Ning. Qin Jinian glanced at the middle-aged woman when he heard this, but he didn't say anything more. After a moment of silence, he said to Lin Yun, Sister Yun, don't worry yet. The police officers are looking for her. Ning Ning has been missing for more than 3 years. Hours. Let's not mention that she might have gotten lost on her own. Even if she hadn't, she must still be nearby. The police officer and the others will definitely be able to find her. Xiaonian. Lin Yun looked at Qin Jinian with tears in her eyes. Among the people here now, Qin Jinian has the closest relationship with her. After all, they have been neighbors for 2 years. Although they have only started to interact with each other recently, Qin Jinian has been having dinner at her place these days. This relationship is already quite strong. Close. Ning Ning's disappearance made her feel overwhelmed, but Qin Jinian's calm reaction gave her great encouragement. Your brother is right. Don't worry. We are working hard to investigate. This is the city center and it is in a school. We attach great importance to it and have deployed additional police. Your family members must trust the police. If possible, you first go back and wait for news. If you don't want to, you can wait outside for now. As soon as we find anything here, we will notify you as soon as possible. The middle-aged policeman also said to Lin Yun sincerely. Lin Yun burst into tears, but in the end she gave a long bow to the police. Please, please help me find my daughter. If she has any shortcomings, then I won't be able to survive, I won't be able to survive. As he spoke, tears fell again. The police nodded quickly, and after some comfort, sent the people out of the office. Ning Ning's mother, this is our kindergarten's dereliction of duty. Don't worry, our kindergarten will fully cooperate and we will find Ning Ning. A middle-aged woman with black-rimmed glasses comforted Lin Yun. At least there's nothing wrong with this attitude. Sister Yun, have you eaten yet? Qin Jinian suddenly asked. Lin Yun, who was full of tears, was stunned for a moment, and then shook her head sadly. Ning Ning was lost, how could she think about eating? People are like iron, rice or steel. No matter what, you can't solve the problem in haste. Let's eat something first, then let's go to the kindergarten. Qin Jinian said calmly. Going to kindergarten. Lin Yun looked up blankly. If you are asked to wait here for news, you will become more and more impatient. It will be even more impossible for you to go back. Then it is better to go to the kindergarten and have a look. Maybe you will find some new clues. This is the leader of the kindergarten. Qin Jinian said and looked at the middle-aged woman with black-rimmed glasses. Ah, I'm the person in charge of the kindergarten. The middle-aged woman with black-rimmed glasses replied quickly. Let's go to the kindergarten to see it in person. Is it okay? No problem, you can do it anytime. The middle-aged woman with black-rimmed glasses nodded quickly and assured. Qin Jinian nodded and said to Lin Yun, Sister Yun, let's go. Go have something to eat first, and then go to the kindergarten. Lin Yun was startled for a moment, but quickly nodded. Indeed, even though she called the police, she only felt extremely tormented while staying here. And asking her to go home and wait for news would be even more uncomfortable than killing her. Instead, she went to search near the kindergarten. Although she was still panicking, at least she had something to do and the time was not so difficult. Several people immediately made a decision and left the police station. There were some small restaurants outside the police station. It was impossible to dine in. Lin Yun couldn't bear it, so she simply cooked a few dishes and took them away. The middle-aged woman with black-rimmed glasses drove the car and brought food to the car to eat. Qin Jinian sat in the passenger seat, and Lin Yun and Ning Ning's homeroom teacher sat in the back seat. Qin Jinian opened the lunchbox and handed it to Lin Yun. Lin Yun forced a smile before shaking her head. You can eat, I'm not hungry now. Qin Jinian put the rice into her hand and said in a very calm voice, no matter what, do things bit by bit. No matter how anxious you are now, Ning Ning will not be able to come back. On the contrary, if you continue to be anxious like this, you will first how can I find Ning Ning when I'm scared to death? Lin Yun was stunned for a moment, and then tears fell down again. But soon she wiped her tears, took the rice, mixed with tears, and started eating in small bites. How could you not be hungry? She didn't have the habit of eating lunch, so she ate some meat buns when she went to work in the morning. Usually after picking up the kids, I go home and cook. But what happened to Ning Ning today? She had no intention of eating anymore. I stayed up for more than 2 hours in anxiety and restlessness. But what Qin Jinian said is obviously right. No matter how anxious she is now, it won't help. For the sake of Ning Ning, she also had to be strong. Seeing Lin Yun eating, Qin Jinian said nothing more and handed a box of lunch to the girl next to Lin Yun, but the girl shook her head with a haggard expression. Qin Jinian didn't force this time, he just opened the lunchbox and ate on his own. He was hungrier than Lin Yun, and he hadn't eaten all day today. There was silence all the way. Soon, the car stopped. Kindergarten is here, the middle-aged woman spoke. Qin Jinian looked up and saw a small iron gate on the side of the road. The words, Sunshine Kindergarten, were hung on the iron gate, which looked very childlike. The buildings inside are also colorful, ranging from red to blue to yellow. Qin Jinian nodded and got out of the car. Lin Yun also got out of the car. Looking around, I saw that the kindergarten door was closed. There were some policemen at the door, talking to several people, and one of them was recording. There were also some police cars parked on the road. The dean is here, police officer. If you have anything to ask, you can ask the dean. A middle-aged man saw their car and quickly said to the policeman next to him. When the woman heard this, she turned her head and glanced, and then said to Qin Jinian and the others, I'll go over there to ask about the situation and see if there are any clues. Xiao Wang, you stay with Ning Ning's mother and the others, and you happen to know the situation too. Okay, principal, the female teacher named Wang responded. After the dean nodded, he complained to Qin Jinian and went to the police. Let's go in and take a look. Where is Ning Ning's restroom? Qin Jinian asked. This way. The female teacher led the way, and soon they walked into the kindergarten and arrived at the lounge. Open the door, turn on the lights, and the childlike lounge in the video appears in front of you. Ning Ning's bed is right there. The female teacher points to the corner in the video. Qin Jinian looked over, and the next moment, his expression darkened, and a cold light appeared in his eyes. Really, has a problem. After watching so many videos at the police station, Qin Jinian always felt that something was wrong with Ning Ning's situation. Her eyes were dull. Although the policeman said he didn't see anything wrong, Qin Jinian couldn't help but care. The reason is simple. Just yesterday, he saw someone, with the same expression. Evil young man. In Qin Jinian's view, the two of them were in very similar states. But unfortunately, in the video, it was impossible for Qin Jinian's eyes to see whether there was black mist surging on Ning Ning's head. That's why he came to the scene. Although he was not sure whether he would find anything when he came to the scene. But now it seems, you've come to the right place. Because at a glance, he saw an extraordinary scene. There was a faint black mist hovering above Ning Ning's bed. Very thin layer, but it does exist. After Qin Jinian took a deep look at He Wu, he then glanced sideways at Lin Yun who was following him. Lin Yun looked at Ning Ning's bed and shed tears. She was obviously thinking of Ning Ning. The look in her eyes, his expression was heartbreakingly sad. The female teacher next to her lowered her head sadly, feeling guilty and uneasy. Obviously none of them saw the black mist. Sure enough, it was because of dark pupil. Qin Jinian thought about it without saying anything. He walked over and lifted Ning Ning's quilt. Finally, after lifting the pillow, he squinted slightly and saw something coming out of black mist. It was a unique-looking brooch with a smiling sunflower pattern on it. It was made of plastic and had a simple and cute graphic. The black mist is diffused from this thing. This made Qin Jinian think of the black card almost instantly. But if he looked carefully, he found that the black mist on the brooch was very shallow and far less solid than the black mist on the black card. It seemed that it would soon be completely of dissipation. Is this Ning Ning's? Qin Jinian picked up the brooch and asked Lin Yun. There was a trace of confusion in Lin Yun's eyes. After looking at it, she shook her head blankly. I haven't seen it before. It belongs to Ning Ning. Teacher Xiao Wang spoke quickly at this time. Ning Ning did very well in school. This is the reward given by the school this morning in recognition of the sunflower baby. Who gave it to me? Besides Ning Ning, are there any other children who have received this award? This question made teacher Xiao Wang a little confused. Sunflower babies will be selected once a week, and similar small toys will be distributed on a class basis. I gave it to Ning Ning. Is there any problem with this? Teacher Xiao Wang asked timidly. Then the class teacher has the final say on who will be selected. Do we need to inform the kindergarten before the selection? Qin Jinian did not answer her, but thought about it and asked another question. Teacher Xiao Wang was even more confused, but she still subconsciously replied, we need to communicate with the kindergarten in advance. Although it is just a selection among children, there is no substantial benefit. But in order to motivate the children, the kindergarten will cooperate. I publish some small newspapers and the like as publicity. So I will notify the park of the list in advance. What happened to this brooch? Seeing that Qin Jinian kept asking about the brooch, Lin Yun also raised her head. Xiaonian, is there something wrong with this brooch? Qin Jinian looked at Lin Yun and didn't say anything. He put the pin away and shook his head. Nothing, I'm just curious. Let's follow the video surveillance and have a look. Seeing that she didn't find any clues, Lin Yun was a little disappointed, but she still nodded. Immediately, Teacher Xiao Wang took Qin Jinian and Lin Yun and walked out of the student dormitory along the path of Ning Ning in today's video, all the way to the last location where she disappeared. This is on the left side of the teaching building. In the last video, Ning Ning turned right past the teaching building and disappeared from the video. Also completely lost trace. It is getting dark now, and the side of the teaching building looks even darker. It is only 1 meter wide from the wall. Although few people come here, it is still very clean. The drainage channel upstairs also extends right here. Qin Jinian looked around and saw that the wall next to it was 3 to 4 meters high. It would be difficult for ordinary adults to climb over it. Of course, it would be easy for those with cultivation. Where is outside the wall? Is there surveillance? Qin Jinian asked after looking at it. There is an old alley outside the wall, and there is no surveillance. Teacher Xiao Wang replied, and then quickly said, but Ning Ning can't climb over the wall from here. It is naturally impossible for a 5-year-old child to climb over the wall on his own. But now Qin Jinian is almost sure that Ning Ning was not lost by herself, but a kidnapping case was specifically targeted at her. So if nothing unexpected happens, Ning Ning was definitely taken away from here. There is a big problem with the brooch. The list of sunflower babies will be notified to the park in advance. These 2 points alone are enough to show that the other party's goal is Ning Ning. But what Qin Jinian doesn't understand is, such a big fanfare, even using the transcendent thing to kidnap a little girl, what is the purpose of the person behind it? From the current contact, Lin Yun is just an ordinary single mother, there is nothing special about her. So there is a high probability that it is not targeting Lin Yun. Is that aimed at Ning Ning's father? Qin Jinian never asked about Ning Ning's father. After all, Lin Yun was single and raising a child, so she obviously had a story. And the story is probably not going to be a happy one. By asking these questions, isn't it just adding salt to people's wounds? But now, it's no longer enough not to ask. Teacher Xiao Wang. After Qin Jinian pondered for a moment, he suddenly spoke. Ah, Teacher Xiao Wang looked at him blankly. Qin Jinian smiled at her. I didn't drink any water after eating just now. I'm a little thirsty now. Could you please go get me a glass of water? Oh, okay. Mother Ning Ning, let me get you a drink too. Teacher Xiao Wang came back to his senses, nodded hurriedly, and said to Lin Yun next to him. Lin Yun looked haggard and shook her head. No, I'm not thirsty. Teacher Xiao Wang opened his mouth, but in the end he said nothing, bowed his head and left quickly. Qin Jinian watched her go away and then said, Sister Yun, such a big thing happened to Ning Ning. Where is her father? Her father. Lin Yun was stunned by this sudden question. After a moment, she shook her head with dim eyes. Her father is no longer here. What's going on? Qin Jinian asked. This kind of question should not be asked so directly, because it is very offensive. After all, Lin Yun's daughter is missing now, and it has been clearly stated that her father is no longer here. To continue to ask questions is to rub salt into the wound. So Lin Yun was a little confused. But when she turned around, she saw Qin Jinian's serious expression. After she opened her mouth, she still lowered her head and said a few simple words. Qin Jinian frowned after listening to a few words. Not because her father is so special, but because he's so ordinary. This is a bloody story that is ordinary but couldn't be more ordinary. A pair of young people met each other. Because they were both old enough and had no ill feelings towards each other, they decided to get married and have children. Then on an ordinary day, unexpectedly, the man died. Because the woman gave birth to a daughter, the man's parents rarely interfered. After the man passed away, the woman lived a difficult life alone with the child. There were a lot of stories like this in my previous life. But such an ordinary story made Qin Jinian frown. Because this shows that the other party's purpose is not for Ning Ning's father. Is it really aimed at Ning Ning himself? But why? The heir of a rich man is seriously ill, and a certain organ in Ning Ning matches it. Qin Jinian couldn't help but frown, and his mind began to think wildly. A full moment later, it wasn't until teacher Xiao Wang came over with 2 glasses of water that Qin Jinian came back to his senses. After pondering for a while, Qin Jinian said to Lin Yun, "Sister Yun, go out first. There are no clues here. Let's see how the police are doing." Lin Yun looked haggard and could only nod her head, and the 3 of them left the kindergarten together. After contacting the police at the scene, the answer was still that there were no clues. Lin Yun was trembling all the time. How could this happen? How could this happen? Ning Ning, Ning Ning. Qin Jinian observed calmly. He now has a general direction. But he didn't tell the police or Lin Yun. After searching for more than an hour, the sky turned completely dark, and the police reluctantly stated that they needed to expand the search scope. But this requires the coordination of multiple departments, but many departments are already off work today, so there is little hope of continuing the search. So Lin Yun was asked to go home and wait for news. Lin Yun cried so hard, but no matter how much she begged, the policemen sighed and left in their cars. Lin Yun was left crying helplessly. There is no way, the child is lost, everyone is anxious. Of course the police are eager to find the person right away. If there are clues, of course it doesn't matter if you work overtime. But now there are no clues at all, so where can we find them? In the end, Qin Jinian comforted Lin Yun in a low voice, and finally took Lin Yun into the car. Although the distance was not far, the dean still drove them back to Tongmuki community. After once again ensuring that the kindergarten would fully cooperate and help find Ning Ning, the dean left. Qin Jinian took Lin Yun, who had almost turned into a zombie, back to the floor where she was. Seeing her blankly opening the door, but unable to insert the key, Qin Jinian sighed in his heart. He has a clue, but he can't tell Lin Yun now. He helped open the door and sent Lin Yun home. Sister Yun, everything is possible. No matter what, the police are still looking, and the kindergarten is also looking. You can't give up hope. Otherwise, Ning Ning has found it, but you gave up hope first. What will Ning Ning do in the future? Qin Jinian could already see the despair and will to die in Lin Yun's eyes. After being silent for a while, he warned Lin Yun seriously. For a single mother, her child is her only spiritual support. If the child is gone, it is equivalent to killing her. Lin Yun trembled all over, and in the end, she said hoarsely, I will not give up. No matter what, I want to meet people in life, die. But she couldn't say the last 3 words anyway. She covered her face and cried helplessly. Qin Jinian comforted her for a while, and after making sure that she had given up her will to die, she returned to her home. He rummaged around the house and decorated it. Standing in front of the mirror, wearing a dark hooded coat, with his head buried, all he could see was his thin figure and a pair of dark eyes. After looking around to make sure there was nothing missing, Qin Jinian opened the door and went out. Then he bought a cartoon mask worn by children in the small supermarket downstairs. He tried it on secretly and found that it fit well. Then he left the Tongmuki community. All the way, heading towards the kindergarten. Sunshine Kindergarten is not far from Tongmuki community. After all, Lin Yun works nearby, so it would be inconvenient if it was too far away. It only took Qin Jinian less than 10 minutes to return to the entrance of the kindergarten. He saw from a distance that the gate of the kindergarten was closed, but the director's car was still inside. After pondering for a while, Qin Jinian walked into an old alley. It was the old alley that was separated from the kindergarten by a wall and was not monitored. After standing by the wall and listening, he glanced around to make sure no one was there, and put the mask he just bought on his face. This is a cartoon tanuki mask, made of plastic with poor material, but it is quite childlike. But at this moment, Qin Jinian, who was all in black, put it on and put on the hood. There was a hint of anomaly in this childlike charm. Only a pair of dark eyes are vaguely exposed. After putting on this mask, Qin Jinian inexplicably felt a strong sense of security welling up in his heart. This made Qin Jinian stunned for a moment, and then a wry smile appeared on his face. The uneasiness of being a stranger is too strong. At this moment, there was just an extra layer of mask, which actually made him feel relaxed that he had not seen for a long time. Although it is obviously just a layer of plastic, and in such a transcendent world, it is unclear whether it can really hide the identity. But I felt inexplicably relaxed. Qin Jinian knows that in psychology, this is called the placebo effect. He smiled bitterly at his self-deception, but Qin Jinian had no time to pay attention to the changes in his mentality caused by the placebo effect. After making sure that there was no one around, he saw the shadow under his feet suddenly peeking out, and the next moment Qin Jinian's figure after a sudden rise, it rose silently with the support of several shadow tentacles. The shadow tentacles turned into several slender invisible legs, which looked anomaly. I've wanted to try this for a long time. The effect looks okay now. Qin Jinian thought with satisfaction. After crossing the wall, the shadow naturally shrank, and he landed gently without making any movement. This is where Ning Ning finally disappeared. It was quiet. Qin Jinian didn't stop and walked directly to the side of the teaching building. While walking, several shadow tentacles blended into the night naturally poked out, extending for more than 10 meters, but the target was a nearby surveillance camera. He had deliberately memorized the locations of all the cameras just now. There was no destruction, just twisting the camera to look elsewhere, and then came out of the darkness. Then at a glance, I saw the only room with lights on the first floor of the teaching building. Qin Jinian did not stop, and the silent prospect quickly approached the room, but then, a sound of chewing came from inside the room. Qin Jinian was shocked in vain. He found an angle in the darkness and saw the situation in the room. Then he was stunned for a moment, and then he breathed a sigh of relief. It wasn't the bloody scene he imagined, it was just that the dean and teacher Xiao Wang, who were wearing black-rimmed glasses, were eating inside. Qin Jinian's eyes flashed for a moment, and then he hid in the darkness and waited patiently. After a while, the dean's voice came from the room. Be smart these 2 days. The police will definitely come again tomorrow. Remember what you said today and don't expose your lies. The dean's voice no longer had the politeness and gentleness it had before, replaced by a kind of indifference and calmness. I know. Teacher Xiao Wang's voice was no longer timid and uneasy, but rather anomaly. After a pause, she said again, Saint weapon was taken away by her brother, is that okay? It's just contaminated with a trace of God's breath. How can it be called a saint weapon? Use it once, and the God's breath will dissipate soon. It's okay. The dean sneered, not caring at all. After saying this, she paused again, and then there was a hint of fanaticism in her voice. I didn't expect that we would be so lucky this time. In the area we are responsible for, a holy seed actually appeared. The holy envoy sent a message that the holy seed this time has excellent qualifications. With a little training, the church may be able to come again. A true God. When the time comes, our contribution will be great, and we may be given divine blood and gain eternal life. When she said the word, eternal life, her voice was trembling, indicating the excitement in her heart at this moment. When teacher Xiao Wang heard this, he also raised his head. Qin Jinian was outside the door and saw the enthusiasm and expectation in her bright eyes at this moment. Qin Jinian, who was outside the door, was stunned after hearing what they said. Saint weapon, holy messenger, true God, divine blood. Could it be? 2 words popped out of his mind. His eyelids couldn't help but twitch. Even in the previous life, this kind of thing was absolutely taboo, something that couldn't even be mentioned. From the transcendent world, Qin Jinian's brows gradually furrowed. If it was before yesterday, he probably wouldn't care so much. However, since he was glanced at by something indescribable last night and almost died on the spot, he knew that there were indeed some existences in this world that were beyond the scope of common sense. Then this world, I'm afraid it will never be like the existence in the previous life that completely fooled all living beings. Qin Jinian felt that things were a little tricky. To be honest, if possible, he would not want to get involved with this thing at all. Anomaly. If it is true as he guessed, then this group of people is even more anomaly than anomaly. Dark, bloody, cruel, crazy, twisted. This is what they are synonymous with. If it is contaminated, it will definitely not do any good. But Qin Jinyan's expression changed several times, but in the end, Ning Ning's big bright eyes appeared in his mind. He sighed inwardly. Well, it wasn't that he messed with them, but they messed with him. Then there's no way. No matter what, Ning Ning couldn't ignore it. He exhaled softly, and then the light in his eyes gradually became colder. If it was such a group of people, then his next actions would have to change. What's the best way to deal with darkness? Not light, but darker than them. Qin Jinyan in the black shadow, under the cartoon civet cat mask, Qin Jinyan's eyes glowed darkly. In the room, after the dean and teacher Xiao Wang finished talking, the dean finally said, "Okay, remember what I said." Teacher Xiao Wang responded. The dean nodded and went out. After walking out of the room, the dean touched the black-rimmed glasses on his face with his middle finger. After standing there for a moment, he walked to his car. The black medium-high heels made a soft, click-click, sound as they walked on the plastic floor. The dean walked to his car, pressed the remote control, and after 2 beeps, the car lock unlocked. Click. With a soft sound, she opened the car door and sat in. She put on her seat belt skillfully, started the car, and drove slowly to the gate. She pressed another remote control, and the iron gate slowly opened. Soon after, the car drove out of the kindergarten and merged into the traffic. The dean drove all the way and glanced at his phone from time to time. There seemed to be some news on it. The neon lights of the city reflected on her black-rimmed glasses, making her eyes unclear. But she also didn't notice that during this process, a pair of dark and cold eyes slowly emerged from the black mist in the huge back row, looking at her back quietly. The dean looks quite rich. The vehicle finally drove into the underground parking lot of a high-end residential complex. She got out of the car and closed the door. Without looking back, she beeped twice and locked the door. Although it is almost past 10 o'clock in the evening, this is the city center, and the underground parking lot is still very busy. Next door to this high-end community is an office building. Office workers are getting off work one after another, and there are many vehicles. There are also underground car washes and so on, and there are still a lot of people there. The dean lowered his head and kept fiddling with his cell phone. He seemed to be chatting with someone. When the conversation reached a happy point, he would also show a smile of expectation. He seemed to be in a very good mood. Not long after, she came to an elevator, pressed down the elevator, and waited. Ding! When the elevator arrived, she looked up and walked into the elevator. As soon as she entered the door, she felt someone else coming in behind her and turned her head subconsciously. Only then did he see a hooded figure with his head lowered and playing with a mobile phone. The dean was startled for a moment and looked at the man subconsciously. But after the man entered the door, he faced the elevator door with his back to her. In addition, he had his head lowered and played with his mobile phone and wore a hood, so she couldn't see his appearance clearly. She was stunned for a moment, but didn't feel anything at all. She pressed the elevator to the 27th floor. After the elevator closed, the hooded figure seemed to remember that he didn't press the elevator, but pressed a number. Floor 23. The dean glanced at it, did not continue to pay attention, and continued to tap on the phone. Ding! When the 23rd floor arrived, the elevator door opened and the hooded figure walked out without looking back the whole time. The dean didn't care, closed the elevator door, and continued going up. When the 27th floor arrived, the dean stepped out of the elevator and walked towards 2708. Didi, click, single quote. The fingerprint was pressed, the lock was opened, the dean entered the door, closed the door behind him, and turned on the light. The bright lights are on, and this is a living room with stylish and simple decoration, clean and tidy. The most important thing is that the area is very large. The living room alone is almost 40 to 50 square meters. Beige sofa, huge TV wall, and a huge floor-to-ceiling window. You can see the busy and neon streets below. The entire house must be at least 140 square meters. In terms of housing prices in the city center, such a house would cost at least 20 to 30 million. It can be seen that the dean is indeed rich. While chatting on his cell phone, the dean took off his high heels, put on his slippers, and walked in. After sitting on the sofa for a while, she chatted with the unknown person on her cell phone for a while. Finally, she put down her cell phone with a satisfied smile on her face. Then she stretched longly and took off the black-rimmed glasses on her face. Then I discovered that she unexpectedly looked pretty good. Wearing black-rimmed glasses, she is a middle-aged woman in her 40s with mediocre looks. After taking off the black-rimmed glasses, her age suddenly dropped by more than 10 years, and she suddenly transformed into a charming beauty who still retains her charm in her 20s. The glasses sealed her appearance by at least 7 layers. In the process of stretching, her slender waist was exposed. The slightly out-of-shape figure of the middle-aged woman was actually deliberately created because she wore a lot of extra clothes. After lazily stretching, she walked into the room wearing flesh-colored stockings. Not long after, the soft sound of water sounded. After taking a beautiful bath, the even more gorgeous dean wiped his hair with a towel and walked out of the bathroom. But as soon as I walked out of the bathroom, the next moment, whoosh, the faint sound of breaking wind suddenly sounded in my ears. The face of the dean, who was enjoying herself, suddenly turned cold. Her legs suddenly exerted force and her body suddenly retreated at a speed beyond imagination. A powerful spiritual energy in his body vibrated and exploded, trying to crush unknown attacks. But the next moment, a sharp pain came from her feet. Her expression changed drastically, and when she looked down, she saw only a few dark thorns of unknown material which had penetrated her right ankle. Blood dripped down instantly. She only had time to groan before she could recover. The next moment, another sharp pain came from her left foot, and she turned her head in shock. The same black thorn penetrated the same position. Before he could regain his senses, the next moment, the black thorn suddenly changed, expanded suddenly, and turned into a blade. Bah! The 2 soles of her left and right feet left her body and fell to the ground, blood spurting out instantly. Ah! The intense pain made her unable to hold on any longer and she screamed. However, the attack did not make contact, because the next moment, she felt something cold and delicate, but extremely solid, entanglement on her neck. This anomaly touch reminded her of a snake for the first time, and the hairs on her back were all wet. It stood upright. The next moment, a strong sense of suffocation hit her, causing her face to turn red. However, this is not over yet. Because the next moment, her wrist felt the same sharp pain as her ankle. She turned her head in horror, and saw 2 black shadows passing by, and her wrist immediately fell. Then, she felt a series of severe pains in her thighs, calves, abdomen, arms, shoulders. A series of medium-sized shadow thorns penetrated her body, and in the blink of an eye, she was riddled with wounds. Then, she felt a cold and delicate touch, entangled in a circle along her flat and smooth belly, and then suddenly tightened the next moment. Then, under successive blows, the psychic energy in her body was finally completely unable to be mobilized. And the beauty who had just come out of the bath, in the blink of an eye, turned into a doll that was hung up by dark hands and covered with blood. Ah! Who are you? The dean finally couldn't help but scream, and she roared angrily. But the next moment, she saw a dark shadow appear in front of her eyes. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a sharp black thorn, suddenly hanging between her eyebrows. The strong sense of crisis made her regain her senses instantly, and then she opened her mouth wide and her face was distorted with fear. The strong sense of fear made her like a fish that landed on the beach and could no longer make any sound. Sorry, I've been a bit nervous these past 2 days, and I've been a little harsh. I'll ask you a few questions. If I answer them, I'll give you a treat. If you don't answer, we have all night. Then, a gentle voice sounded. The dean suddenly turned her head, and then she saw a strange figure sitting on her single sofa in the dark room. The figure was wearing a black suit with a hood, leaning against the sofa with his legs crossed. When he raised his head, what was revealed under the hood was not a human face, but a childlike cartoon tanuki mask. Only a pair of dark eyes were revealed, with a dark light glowing calmly. Under the dim background, neon light shines from time to time. A hooded man wearing a cartoon mask of a raccoon cat sat on a single sofa with his legs crossed. Wisps of black shadow spread from his toes, forming tentacles that hung the nearly naked woman to the ceiling between the bathroom and the bedroom. Blood dripped from countless wounds on the woman's body and pooled into a pool. Anyone who watches it will say, "What kind of soccer plot is this? Who are you?" The dean twisted her neck and looked at the mysterious man on the sofa. The severe pain in her body made her voice tremble strongly. Or maybe it wasn't just the pain. The masked man looked at the naked woman in the air, but his eyes were clear and his voice was still gentle. "Maybe you didn't hear clearly what I just said. I'm asking you, not me. Sorry, I'm in a hurry, so don't waste each other's time, let's get started now." The woman was still stunned, but the masked man had already asked her first question, "What is the name of your church?" Just the first sentence made the headmistress's expression change in vain, and then she stared at Chin Jinian. "Are you the night watchman?" "Sorry, wrong answer." The man shook his head regretfully. While the woman was still confused, in the next breath, she suddenly trembled, and then she let out a shrill scream. She suddenly turned her head with an almost distorted face, and then she saw a shadow penetrated into her flesh from her severed wrist, causing her pupils to suddenly dilate, and a mixture of intense pain and an extreme fear hit her. It almost made her whole body convulse. The man's voice was still gentle. "The sound insulation effect of your house is pretty good. I added another layer inside, so it shouldn't affect the neighbors. But again, I'm in a hurry, so don't waste each other's time. Now, can you answer?" As the headmistress screamed, she saw the shadow burrowing into her flesh and blood bit by bit. Wherever it passed, the bones and flesh were separated and raised, and blood flowed down. The huge physical and psychological pressure made her finally bear it. He kept screaming, I said. The shadow suddenly stopped, and the only sound left in the room was the female director's fierce breathing, and her lips had been bitten with blood. After taking a few breaths, the man gave a confused hum, which made the female dean tremble all over, and she quickly said, "Zhu Yanzhao. How to teach in the end. What a weird name." The man thought to himself and nodded slightly. "Second question, what is your status in the church?" The face of the female dean changed again. She bit her lip tightly and reluctantly raised her head to look at the man. "You are not a night watchman. Night watchmen would not use such hands." Before the words could be spoken, the shadow started to move again. The woman screamed again. On the right arm, a high-raised purple mark appeared, twisting and squirming inside, as if it had penetrated a living thing. Stop, I said. The woman finally couldn't help it and screamed again. The shadow stopped. She took a few more intense breaths, and a hint of despair appeared in her pale face. She finally realized that the vicious methods of the man in front of her were no worse than those perverts in their church's trial court. In fact, this man gave her an even colder feeling. He could speak in such a calm and gentle voice while performing such torture. This kind of smiling tiger-like figure was the scariest thing. "I'm just an ordinary peripheral manager." The woman finally realized the situation in front of her. She lowered her head and panted while answering. The man did not answer, as if he was thinking about something. After a moment, he asked, "The third question is, how many people are there in the Zhongyan sect?" The woman was silent for a moment, and this time she did not resist. Her eyes were cold, and she gritted her teeth and said, "I can't answer this question for you. I'm just a peripheral manager, and I don't know much about the situation in the church." "Who brought you into the religion?" "A red priest." "Specific identity?" "I have no idea. I really don't know. I just accidentally picked up a leaflet of the Zhongyan sect, entered the website they gave me, and then came into contact with the Zhongyan sect. Later, I participated in several offline activities organized by the church. But most of the attendees were just ordinary people. Later, when I attended more times, I slowly came into contact with a priest and officially joined the church." Why join this church? Why not? "Before joining the church, I was just an ordinary person. I was worried every day and always uneasy. But after joining the church, the true God gave me the power and gave me the opportunity to control my own life. Why not? Under the blood moon, the true God comes, everyone will die. Only by joining the church and receiving the protection of the true God can you not die. You can even gain eternal life. Eternal life. God will grant eternal life to believers. Have you seen God? As long as you are pious, you will eventually see it. Quote. Very devout faith, so continue. As a peripheral steward, what is your usual job? We will do whatever the church tells us. For example. Quote. Most of the time, the church doesn't specifically tell us anything. It just lets us hide our identities and live peacefully. Occasionally, there will be some special orders, such as placing something at a designated location before the blood moon. Put something in. Everything sent from the church is wrapped. I don't know. Saint Weapon. Quote. How do you know Saint Weapon? Who the hell are you? Our current atmosphere is very pleasant. Please don't destroy this happiness, okay? Yes. Purpose. Have no idea. Really do not know. Quote. Besides, what other tasks are there? No more, at least I haven't received any other tasks. Look, you're trying to ruin the pleasant atmosphere again. Since I know Saint Weapon, do you think I don't know anything else? Quote. You, who are you? Where will the holy seed be sent? The word, holy seed, made the female dean tremble all over. She suddenly stared at the man sitting on the single sofa with his legs crossed. After a moment, she lost her voice. It's you. You are. Quote. Before the woman finished speaking, the man raised his hand slightly, and the next moment, a shadow turned into a big hand and covered her mouth, causing her next words to sound like a whimper. Just know it, don't say it. So, can you answer this question? The man asked gently. The woman looked at the man in disbelief and struggled a few times subconsciously, but she could not break away from the cold shadow tentacles at all. Despair finally appeared in her eyes. After struggling to no avail, she finally lowered her head feebly. The shadow's big hand slowly let go. The woman looked at the man with a complicated expression and closed her eyes. Black market. Black market. This answer was obviously beyond the man's expectations, and his eyes under the mask narrowed slightly. The woman continued expressionlessly. The church headquarters is said to be in the black market. But I don't know which black market specifically. I have never been there. The holy seed was also picked up by a red priest in person. Only going to headquarters. Do you have a guide? Qin Jinian asked after a moment of silence. No, the woman shook her head. Quote. I do. Qin Jinian's next words made the woman stunned for a moment. The next moment, she saw a black card held between his two fingers. Then a shadow tentacle held the card and handed it to the woman. The woman subconsciously stared at the black card, and when she saw the black card and the words, Night Crow, on it, her expression changed drastically. Are you the Red Priest of the Night Blood sect? Night Blood cult? Qin Jinian was startled for a moment, and then his teeth felt a little cold. Things seemed to be getting more and more complicated. No, you're not. Who are you? Why do you have a Night Blood certificate? Could it be that you killed a Night Blood red suit? No, this is impossible. The Red Priests all have supreme power, how could it be so easy? Before Qin Jinian could speak, the headmistress kept mumbling to herself, looking as if she was so shocked that she lost her mind. It seems you know a lot. Then, let's talk about Night Blood. After Qin Jinian paused, a gentle voice sounded. The headmistress, murmur paused. After a moment, she slowly raised her head and looked at Qin Jinian again. Her eyes had changed, becoming crazy and resentful. You have no idea what you did. You are dead. Not only you, but also your family, relatives, friends, everyone who has anything to do with you, maybe just met once, is dead. You killed Yekshui's Hongyi, and you dared to keep the Yekshui certificate on your body. Hey. The Yekshui certificate contains the divine power of the Nightblood God clan, and your soul breath has been recorded. They may now already locked on you. You can't escape. The next blood moon will be when you are liquidated by the Night Blood Church. Everyone who has come into contact with you will become the food of the Night Blood God clan. Their bodies will be eaten by the gods, their hearts will become sacrifices, and their heads will serve as wine barons. Their souls will become slaves of the servants of the gods, and finally they will struggle under the divine power, scream, despair, and finally become distorted, deformed, and fall into the abyss forever. Ha. This is all because of you. All because of you. The headmistress laughed crazily, her laughter full of joy. But what he said made Qin Jinian frown. The Night Blood God clan, what is it again? Qin Jinian asked, but the headmistress stopped answering him. She seemed to have figured out something and just laughed wildly. Qin Jinian frowned slightly and curled his fingers lightly. The shadow that suddenly penetrated into the opponent's flesh and blood began to pupate again. The headmistress suddenly screamed miserably, and her body began to twist, struggle, and squirm under the binding of the shadow tentacles. But this time, she wasn't giving in. She screamed miserably, "Ha ha ha, it's useless, it's useless. I am the most devout believer in God. I bathe in the mercy of my Lord. The pain and suffering in this world are like rain and nectar to me. I will see God, walk with God, and witness the end of all things. I am the final being, the place where all things end. My Lord is in the final place, overlooking all living beings in myriad worlds. I am the final being, my Lord. The abyss has changed. Become brave." The severe pain did not make her give in anymore, but instead made her keep mumbling weird prayers in her mouth. At first, Qin Jinian could barely hear clearly, but later on, he could no longer hear clearly. The severe pain and long-term blood loss had caused her consciousness to fall into chaos. Her face was ferocious and twisted, but she also had an indescribable sense of holiness. This sense of holiness came very anomaly and suddenly. This made Qin Jinian frown. So that's why he doesn't want to have contact with these people. Many of these people are crazy. But what is going on with the female dean? Before he took out the black card, the female dean was obviously afraid of pain and would answer whatever she asked. Of course there must be something hidden in this, but at least it would let Qin Jinian know some information. But when he took out the black card, the female dean changed. Becoming brave and crazy is more in line with his stereotype of these people. But this is a bit tricky for Qin Jinian. The female dean knows a lot, and he still has many things he wants to ask. But now, at this moment, Qin Jinian's expression suddenly changed, because he suddenly saw that a wisp of black mist began to slowly emerge from the other party's body. This made Qin Jinian's eyes suddenly darken, and without any hesitation, the shadow that had been hanging between the other party's eyebrows suddenly penetrated the head of the female dean with a pop. The anomaly and poignant eulogy came to an abrupt end in an instant. The headmistress's body twitched several times in the air, and finally went completely limp, hanging like a tattered doll from the ceiling. And the black mist that just emerged slowly dissipated after a slight pause. Qin Jinian's brows frowned under the mask. After a moment, his eyes moved slightly, and the shadow tentacles slowly descended. The body of the female dean fell to the ground. Her eyes widened, and a bloody hole between her eyebrows was shocking. After pondering for a moment, the shadow tentacles slowly merged into the darkness. But 3 shadows peeked out, and one of them came to the bedside and picked up the female dean's cell phone that was plugged in for charging. The other 2 took her severed hands on the left and right. From the moment we got in the car, the female dean had been dialing her cell phone, obviously chatting with someone. Combined with the excitement she felt before leaving kindergarten today, Qin Jinian speculated that the person behind the phone was probably someone from the Zhongyan teaching. And it is very likely that he is someone who knows where Ning Ning is. He manipulated his 2 severed hands to tentatively unlock the fingerprint password on his phone. As a result, as soon as the thumb of the right hand touched the fingerprint sensor interface, the phone clicked slightly and the password was unlocked. He glanced at the phone and reached out to take it. As a result, you can see the above information at a glance. The Holy Religion Conference at the end of the month will grant you the latest divine blood and priest status. Lu Yin, I will arrange for someone to send it to you tomorrow. Congratulations, Sister Luo. Qin Jinian was startled for a moment, then frowned and clicked on the message. After chatting a lot, Qin Jinian scrolled to the end and found the first message, which was sent at around 7 o'clock in the evening. He was reporting to the other party the situation with the police after Ning Ning disappeared. The other party said very little. At first, only when the female dean asked for instructions, he would simply reply with a sentence or 2. But after 8 o'clock, the other party responded significantly more frequently. The priest in white just told me that after careful investigation by the priest in red, this saint has excellent qualifications and is very likely to be able to survive the divine descending ceremony. Congratulations to Sister Luo, you have made great contributions to the Lord. Another true God will come to our religion. Praise be to the Lord of all ends. After this message, the text sent by the female dean became obviously more excited. And the other party occasionally responded and seemed extremely happy. It seems that the matter of the holy seed is not only beneficial to the female dean. On the opposite side, there are also benefits. He even had time to chat with the female dean. Looking at the following text, Chin Jinian's expression suddenly became weird again. Because he vaguely felt from the female academician's words that she seemed to have a great affection for the person opposite. But he is extremely forbearing. A feeling of déjà vu as a female subordinate has a crush on the boss. Thinking back to the expression and behavior of the female dean in the car and after getting off the car, it really looked a bit like falling in love. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but look at the naked female dean who was lying next to her with a ferocious look on her face. But his eyes were calm. Speaking of which, he and the female dean had no grievances, but he directly killed the other party, which sounded cruel. But Chin Jinian doesn't think so. Not to mention that he likes the little girl Ning Ning very much, but the other party chose to take action against her. To take a step back, even if he doesn't take action against Ning Ning, is it okay to take action against other children? Chin Jinian is not a saint, and he will not look for trouble unless he meets him. But now that he has encountered it and decided to take action, he will not be kind to women. Thinking of this, the shadow tentacle sent the two severed hands to the side of the corpse. Then, with a thought in his mind, Shadow Devourer was activated. The darkness turned into a swamp, slowly devouring the opponent's body, along with blood and severed limbs. After it completely disappeared, the black shadow returned to his feet, and an unprecedented strong sense of comfort instantly filled his body. You activate, Shadow Devourer, swallowing the flesh and blood of ordinary dark creatures, attribute points plus 187.14, shadow points plus 214.28. Divine body strength is slightly restored. Closing square bracket. The prompt text appeared on the panel, making Chin Jinian startled. Attribute point 187. Shadow point 214. Let's not talk about attribute points first. This shadow spot, that's very telling. Chin Jinian couldn't help but think of the black mist that appeared on the headmistress' body just now, and his eyes slowly flashed. Is it possible that these church members will add shadow points to me? Attribute points are no longer a big problem for Chin Jinian. But the shadow points made him scratch his head. After all, only dark creatures had shadow points. And the blood moon is too dangerous for him, and it happens only once every 4 months, which obviously greatly slows down his upgrade speed. Who made the panel know the level? If his cultivation and status are not improved, his vitality and mental power cannot be improved. At least there is still a way to go in terms of cultivation. Even though we haven't started yet, once we get on the right track, progress will not be slow. On the contrary, as for the personality thing, it can only be piled up by shadow points. Therefore, the shadow point has become the biggest difficulty. But now, he seems to have seen a way. After his eyes flickered for a moment, he let out a breath and finally looked at the message on his phone. There was some silence for a while. Ning Ning didn't know where she was taken. It was most likely the headquarters in a black market that the female dean mentioned. The possibility of rescuing her in such a short time was almost gone. Not to mention that he still couldn't find the exact location. Even if they can be found, just coming to the door rashly like this will end up costing someone their life. Even though it was easy for him to kill the female dean, he succeeded through a sneak attack. With the speed and strength shown by the opponent before, Chin Jinian would also have a hard time fighting head-on. And if the other party knows the characteristics of his superpower and then confronts him, then the pressure on him will probably be even greater. Once you get close, there is even a possibility of GG. And this female abbess, from the current point of view, is just a nun in the so-called Church of the End. This is probably the lowest level of the church. You can imagine how powerful this final sect is. With the current Chin Jinian, it is impossible to be an opponent. Fortunately, judging from the information obtained so far, at least in terms of safety, there will be no problems in the short term. At the end of the month, the Holy Church Conference. It's the beginning of the month now, and conservatively there are still about 20 days until the end of the month. Chin Jinian frowned, and after a moment, he took a breath. Yesterday and today, in just 2 days, he seemed to have been exposed to a lot of things. There are also many people who don't understand. It seems that we need to figure these things out as soon as possible. Intelligence. Where can I get enough and high-quality information? Chin Jinian gradually discovered that the biggest shortcoming of the lone traveler was. After coming downstairs, Chin Jinian went straight to the dean's car. He also learned to drive in his previous life. People died at home, with no bones left. It is obviously inappropriate to leave the car in the parking space. After lighting the fire, Chin Jinian was startled for a moment, and then he was in a trance for a moment. When did he become so skilled at killing people, even Gujing Wubo? If you think about it carefully, the first time you killed someone was actually yesterday. But when you think about it, it doesn't seem too strange or scary. Do I still have the potential to hide a perverted murderer? He scratched his head, and after thinking about it for a moment, he realized that this was probably due to uneasiness. He came to this world for more than 3 months, and before he got the shadow superpower, he didn't sleep peacefully for a day. Under such strong psychological pressure, it seems that it is not incomprehensible to have slight psychological distortions and abnormalities. Especially after getting the shadow superpower, he immediately had a fight with his good sister Anomaly. The scene where his good sister Anomaly melted was more terrifying and frightening than any killing scenes or horror movies in his previous life. I've seen that kind of scene before, and I still calmed down, and then I killed a lot of people, and it seemed that I wouldn't have any special feelings. But now this kind of murder and car grabbing is done so smoothly, it somewhat wakes up Chin Jinian. No matter what, he felt that he had to stabilize his mentality. He didn't want to be a perverted murderer. Thinking in his mind, the vehicle slowly started and drove out of the underground parking lot. It's now past 10 o'clock in the evening, and it's dark, but the streets in the city center are still busy with people and cars. Chin Jinian still wore the Civet Cat cartoon mask, thinking about what to do next while driving. Before many questions could be asked, the female dean suddenly became brave, and her subsequent prayers triggered a strange black mist, forcing Chin Jinian to deal with her. He didn't think about it just now, but now that he thinks about it. Could it be that the female dean was afraid of being sued by the so-called Nightblood God clan? Thinking of this, Chin Jinian's expression was a little strange. The female dean said that the black card in Chin Jinian's hand was something from a red-robed priest of the Nightblood sect. Although she didn't know how she judged it, since she was so sure, she must have a reason, so she thought that was all. Then the word, Yi Crow, above is very likely the name or code name of the evil young man yesterday. The female dean also said that if she killed the other party, her soul aura would probably be locked by the so-called Nightblood God clan. When the night of the blood moon comes, they will come to find you, even your relatives and friends. She said it so firmly and in such a crazy situation, so the possibility of this matter is very high. The headmistress knew so clearly, plus the words, Yexue God clan, it had to make Chin Jinian suspect. Although the two churches, Zhongyan and Yexue, belong to different families, it is very possible that the connection is very deep. And the Yexue cult has the God clan, so it is a reasonable guess. The final sect may also have something like the final Yan God clan, and the two may communicate with each other. When the female dean saw the items from the Nightblood Red sacrifice appear in the hands of Chin Jinian, and suspected that Chin Jinian's soul aura had been locked by the Nightblood God clan, she suddenly realized that if she acted too weak and fearful, it is very possible that his God will know about this and become brave all of a sudden. It is very possible. After all, for madmen, who knows what is going on in their brain circuits? The Nightblood God clan, could it be the kind of anomaly that popped up from the evil young man's mind later? If so, that would be a bit troublesome. Chin Jinian thought of the anomaly last night again, and frowned. It's very scary. That thing can use a method to induce indescribable existences. If you were really targeted by something like this. Chin Jinian frowned, and after a moment, he breathed a sigh of relief. It is a disaster that cannot be avoided. It's useless to think about it now. The most urgent task is to get the practice matters on track first and at the same time find out some useful information. As for the rest, just watch as you go. My heart suddenly became heavy again. Sure enough, this world is full of dangers. This kind of world. He cursed secretly before taking a deep breath and temporarily putting these things behind him. He took out the black card and glanced at the black card while driving. How to use this thing? According to Mubai, Chin Jinian speculated that this thing was a long-term guide to the black market. But according to what the female dean said, the real name of this thing should be Night Blood Certificate. So, can I use it to find the black market? What Chin Jinian lacks most now is information. As a lawless place, the black market must have a large number of intelligence channels. As long as he can enter the black market, he can probably figure out many of the current mysteries. The key is, you have to enter the black market first. But he studied this black card for a long time after getting it, including when he was upgrading it by Ching Lake during the day. But no matter how much I fiddle with it, nothing changes. So Chin Jinian now wonders whether this can lead him to the black market. Maybe Juju Luin just looks similar to this thing, and I misunderstood it. After all, even Mubai has never seen a real long-term road guide. And this one in my hand is just an identity symbol of the Night Blood cult. Something like an ID card. Chin Jinian was silent for a while and finally put the black card away. But fortunately, someone will lead a real path to the female dean tomorrow. There should be a chance to get it. His eyes flashed, and his mind began to think about how to get the road guide tomorrow. After thinking for a while, he narrowed his eyes and probably had a plan in mind. It's only one day anyway, so let's wait until tomorrow. He thought to himself, and then looked at where he was now. He had been driving along with the traffic just now, and he didn't know where he was now. But it's not a big problem, there is navigation. Thinking about his plans for tomorrow, he turned on his mobile phone and navigated to Tongmuki community. Half an hour later, he returned to Tongmuki. After getting off the car, I found a place where no one was around, put down my hood, and took off the mask on my face. Then he returned to his home. After washing up, Chin Jinian lay on the bed and reviewed his plans for tomorrow before falling asleep. Early the next morning, at around 6 o'clock, Chin Jinian was woken up by the alarm clock. Yawning and stretching, he took a mobile phone. Unlock easily with your fingerprint and open a dialog box. I may not be in the kindergarten all day today. The Holy Mother went to the police station early in the morning. I have to keep an eye on. Just have someone deliver the things to my house. I changed the password. The password is 1248. After editing such a message and seeing that there was nothing wrong with it, he clicked the send button. Then Chin Jinian got up and washed up. When I came back from work, I saw a message. Good. Chin Jinian's eyes suddenly lit up and he smiled. Done. The mobile phone naturally belongs to the female dean. As for why his fingerprint can unlock the door, of course it's because he added his own fingerprint to the phone. The person who is replying now is naturally the member of the Zongyan sect who is suspected to be the superior of the female dean. Chin Jinian didn't know his name, and even his online name was just like a trumpet. The death of the headmistress was uneventful, but now Chin Jinian can't let her death be noticed, at least not for the time being. So, if you can delay it for a day, it's a day. The road guide is very important to Chin Jinian. According to the female dean, there seem to be many black markets, and the headquarters of the final sect is located in one of them. At the end of the month, the Juyin sect will hold a conference. The road guide sent by the other party should lead directly to the headquarters of the other party. But since it is called the black market, it means that it is most likely not only the headquarters of the final sect, but also a market. The role played by the final sect is very likely to be in existence like the organizer. But it doesn't matter. What Chin Jinian lacks now is an information path. As long as he comes into contact with the black market, he will definitely be able to find a way to get some information. Naturally, one cannot pry into the Zongyan sect's information in this black market, but just prying out information about other black markets should not arouse the Zongyan sect's attention. And after he uses this black market as a springboard to get more black market information, he can go to other black markets to find out information about the Zongyan sect. Of course, the market is likely to be closed on the day of the Juyin church meeting. After all, it is a church gathering that is not visible to the public, and most likely the guards will be very tight on that day. But Chin Jinian didn't plan to go back then. He plans to take action as soon as he gets the lead. As for whether there would be any problems with Lu Yin itself, such as the fact that once he uses it, the ultimate sect will detect it, he thinks the possibility is very low. After all, from the current point of view, the status of the female dean in Zhongyanjiao is not high. The other party gave her a guide just because she made a great contribution this time, but there is really no need to pay too much attention to her. Therefore, the road guide given to her is most likely just an ordinary one-time road guide. But the other party's message yesterday stated that they would send someone to provide directions today, but Qin Jinian didn't know where the other party would send the things. According to the other party's explanation, it is possible that they will be sent directly to Sunshine Kindergarten. But Sunshine Kindergarten is so big, who knows where he will lead the way. It is impossible for Qin Jinian to search everywhere openly in broad daylight. After all, it is currently confirmed that it is the Zhongyan sect, and that teacher Xiao Wang. Are there anyone else specifically? No one knows this. So after much thought, Qin Jinian couldn't let him lead Lu to the kindergarten. The house of the female dean is very suitable. He didn't know whether the other party knew where the dean lived. But based on common sense, the probability of knowing is very high. This kind of church's control over its subordinates should not be weak at all. For congregants like the female dean who have a low status but have a certain sense of presence, some basic information should still be available. So Qin Jinian took a gamble and asked the other party to send the guide directly to her home, and directly told her the fingerprint lock password that she had changed before going out. As expected, the other party knew. Now, Lu Yin just needs to wait. Qin Jinian let out a breath, put away his phone, stood up and walked out. Lu Yin has been dealt with for the time being, so the next step is to deal with teacher Xiao Wang. But teacher Xiao Wang can't be killed yet, because Qin Jinian still needs her to stabilize the police openly. Otherwise, as a kindergarten teacher and leader, the child disappeared yesterday, and the two of them disappeared one after another today. Doesn't this clearly tell the police that there is a big problem here? And once the police's attention intensifies, it will inevitably alarm the final sect. Qin Jinian's plan will go bankrupt. Therefore, he needs teacher Xiao Wang, at least today, to divert the attention of the police. As for the Zhongyan sect, he doesn't think he will notice any problems in the short term. From the conversation between the female dean and teacher Xiao Wang yesterday, it cannot be heard that although teacher Xiao Wang is also a member of the Zhongyan sect, he is not a member of the Zhongyan sect, should be one level lower than the female dean. At least, she should not have a direct channel of communication with the final sect. That's why she needs the female dean to convey the news about the holy seed to her. But to stabilize teacher Xiao Wang, one more person is needed to cooperate. After going through the plan in his mind, Qin Jinian went out, then came to the next door and knocked on the door. Who? After a while, Lin Yun's weak voice came from inside. It's me, Sister Yun. Xiaonian, wait a minute. Not long after, the door opened. When he opened the door, Qin Jinian was startled for a moment, and then frowned slightly. After just one night of absence, Lin Yun seemed to have aged several years. Her face was haggard, her eyes were sunken, and there were thick dark circles under her eyes. Seeing Qin Jinian, a forced smile appeared on her face. Xiaonian, what's wrong? Qin Jinian was silent for a moment, and then sighed softly. Sister Yun, I told you yesterday that Ning Ning's matter can't be rushed, but we can definitely get it back. First of all, you can't give up hope, otherwise Ning Ning will come back. But you collapsed, what should Ning Ning do? At the mention of Ning Ning, Lin Yun trembled all over, and then she couldn't hold back the tears dripping down. Her pale face showed a strong haggardness, and she murmured, I know, but I can't do it. When I think about Ning Ning, something might have happened to her now. She might be lying on the cold ground calling her mother, I. At the end of her words, she covered her face and sat weakly on the ground, her whole body trembling, and she cried in a low and sad voice, repressed. There was a strong sense of despair in this cry. Seeing this situation, Qin Jinian frowned, and then he knew that he had taken it for granted. As a bystander, although he likes Ning Ning very much, he is not a blood relative after all, so he can still remain calm. But for Lin Yun, Ning Ning is everything to her. For a mother not to worry about her only child, isn't this forcing someone to do something difficult? How many mothers who lost their children in previous lives went crazy and stupid within a few days? Don't they know that their worries are actually useless? But if this feeling can be controlled, it is not a feeling. Qin Jinian was silent for a while, looking at the helpless and desperate Lin Yun on the ground, and finally let out a breath. Sister Yun. Qin Jinian spoke, and Lin Yun raised her head helplessly. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying, and her eyes were blank. Go inside first. There's something I want to tell you, some clues about Ning Ning. Qin Jinian's words suddenly made Lin Yun's eyes widen. She climbed up, grabbed Qin Jinian's hand tightly, and said in a trembling voice, Xiaonian, are you telling the truth? You can't lie to your sister about this, you can't. Don't worry, go inside first and I'll speak slowly. Qin Jinian patted Lin Yun's hand and comforted her softly. Lin Yun nodded hurriedly and made way for Qin Jinian to enter the house. Then she looked at Qin Jinian with a look of anticipation and anxiety. Xiaonian. Qin Jinian paused for a moment, then took a breath, looked at Lin Yun and said directly, I probably know where Ning Ning is now. Just the first sentence made Lin Yun's eyes suddenly widen. When I came out of Lin Yun's house, it was already half an hour later. Lin Yun's face was indescribably solemn, her teeth were clenched, and her eyes were red. After Qin Jinian glanced at Lin Yun, he softly exhaled and comforted, Sister Yun, relax a little. Ning Ning must be safe now. Next, I need you to help my friend buy time. Lin Yun nodded quickly, clenched her fists and said solemnly, I know. I will make sure that teacher Xiao Wang can't go anywhere throughout the whole day. At the end of the sentence, she gritted her teeth. It's true that I know people but not their hearts. I didn't expect that she turned out to be. At the end of the sentence, Rao was as gentle as her, and a look of surprise appeared in his eyes. But soon, it was replaced by a strong feeling of hatred. As a single mother, she can accept a lot of hardships. But the only thing he couldn't accept was that something happened to his own child. For Ning Ning, she would even risk her life. Thinking of this, Lin Yun looked at Qin Jinian. Xiaonian, are you leaving now? Seeing Lin Yun's appearance, Qin Jinian breathed a sigh of relief and nodded, let's go now. Now, Lin Yun's expression, apart from being a little tired, no longer looked as hopeless and haggard as before. This made Qin Jinian think that his decision was right. If Lin Yun continues to wait at home without knowing anything, Qin Jinian will probably have an emotional breakdown before Qin Jinian can rescue Ning Ning. Even if you don't die, you have to go crazy. As it happens, the key today is to contain teacher Xiao Wang, prevent her from discovering anything wrong, and ensure that Qin Jinian can get guidance smoothly. So just find something for Lin Yun to do. As the victim, Lin Yun had plenty of excuses to keep teacher Xiao Wang away from him. As long as teacher Jian didn't want the matter to get to the point where the police would pay special attention to her. Therefore, Qin Jinian told Lin Yun some things with reservation. Well, the main reserved part is him. His role has become one of his friends. Qin Jinian did not hide the rest, including things about the final church. Qin Jinian originally planned to hide it, but after he actually opened his mouth, he found that it didn't mean much whether he wanted to hide it or not. Because now Lin Yun is most likely to have fallen into the eyes of the Zhongyan sect. After all, as the mother of the Holy Seed, it is difficult not to be noticed. Although, until now, Qin Jinian has not figured out what the so-called Holy Seed is and why Ning Ning was chosen. But from the conversation between the female dean and the mysterious number, it is not difficult to see that the Holy Seed is very rare and related to the true God. Highly valued. Therefore, Lin Yun will inevitably be paid attention to by the Zhongyan sect. In this case, is there anything else to hide? Don't hide it from time to time, which will only cause more trouble. At first, Lin Yun's reaction was exactly as Qin Jinian expected, dazed, confused, and at a loss. But when Qin Jinian mentioned Ning Ning, her expression changed. Get serious, pay attention. At the end Qin Jinian said, Sister Yun, you don't need to worry about the final Yan sect. Someone will naturally handle it. You can also rest assured about Ning Ning's safety for the time being. At least for a short time, Ning Ning is very safe. But now, I need a favor from you. When she heard that she was asked to help, Lin Yun quickly stood up and said eagerly, what do you want me to do? No matter what. Immediately, Qin Jinian made a request, asking her to keep teacher Xiao Wang under surveillance today and not allow her to have time to contact the outside world. Lin Yun naturally agreed. At the end, Lin Yun looked at Qin Jinian, bit her lip and said, Xiaoyan, actually, I don't understand a lot of what you said. But, I believe in you. I believe in you, and I will definitely bring Ning Ning back. I will do whatever you want me to do. I will listen to you. From then on, Lin Yun regarded Qin Jinian as her only life-saving straw. The trust in him has reached an almost blind level. This actually saves Qin Jinian a lot of words. The two went downstairs and left the community directly. They came directly to the entrance of Sunshine Kindergarten. After Qin Jinian nodded to Lin Yun took a deep breath, took out her mobile phone, and made a call. It didn't take long for the call to come through. Hello. A soft voice sounded on the other end of the phone. Teacher Xiao Wang. Lin Yun's voice suddenly became weak, full of fatigue and haggard. Ah, it's Ning Ning's mother. Teacher Xiao Wang seemed startled, and after a pause, he timidly asked, "You called me?" "I didn't sleep all night after I went back yesterday. I felt that what we said at the police station yesterday was not detailed enough, and some key information might have been ignored and omitted. Can you please accompany me to the police station again? Are you Ning Ning's homeroom teacher? Ning Ning is missing now, you must help me." Lin Yun's voice was tired. But there seems to be some paranoia that is almost neurotic. "Ah, where are you now?" "I'm at the door of your kindergarten." "I understand. Then, just wait for me for a moment and I'll be right over." "Okay, please." "No, it's not troublesome. If I hadn't fallen asleep at the time, Ning Ning wouldn't have. I have a big responsibility. Just wait for me for a while, I'll be in the kindergarten, come out soon." "Okay, I'll wait for you here." After ending the call, Lin Yun looked at Qin Jinian. Qin Jinian nodded to her, and then whispered, "When you get to the police station, you just need to be careful not to let her out of your sight." "Yeah." Lin Yun gritted her teeth and nodded. Qin Jinian then said, "Okay, then I'll go to my friend's place first. We'll talk later in the evening." "Good." Lin Yun nodded. Qin Jinian turned around. "Little year." Lin Yun suddenly stopped him. Qin Jinian turned to look at Lin Yun. When she saw Lin Yun bowing deeply towards him, she couldn't help but burst into tears. "Ning Ning, I'll leave it to you." Qin Jinian took a deep look at Lin Yun, finally nodded, then waved his hand and turned to leave. After he walked not far away, the cell phone in his pocket rang. He took it out and took a look. Sure enough, it was the headmistress's station that was ringing. The caller's name was Xiao Wang. The phone rang, but he didn't answer it and hung up soon after. Then, there was a soft, ding-dong, sound. A message came through. He opened it and took a look. "The Holy Mother came to school again and asked me to accompany her to the police station." Qin Jinian waited for 2 minutes before replying. "Okay, remember what you said yesterday. Try to comfort her and don't let her cause trouble. Also, when facing the police, don't let anything slip." Soon, a reply came from the other side. "Receive." Qin Jinian looked at these 2 words and let out a breath. "Great, done. Now, just wait for the guide to arrive." His eyes moved slightly, and then he went to Tongmu Chess Club. "When I got home, I put on my clothes from last night and went out with my hood on. It was early in the morning, and there was no one downstairs yet." Qin Jinian came to the car of the female dean. After getting in the car, the vehicle started and drove out of the community. Now he is going to the female dean to keep an eye on. Keep an eye on the guy giving directions. If you can follow the clue. Ding dong. The phone rings softly. Has someone sent another message? Who could it be? Qin Jinian looked at the female dean's cell phone. As a result, there is no information on it. This made him stunned for a moment, and then he realized. It's my mobile phone. He took out his phone and turned on the screensaver, and a message popped up. You skipped a whole day of class yesterday, and you plan to continue today. Unexpectedly, it turned out to be the news from Chen Feifei. Chapter 41. After seeing this message, Qin Jinian remembered. I seem to be still a student. However, after going to school yesterday, Qin Jinian felt that the current high school was not very useful to him. But college is important. After thinking about it, Qin Jinian drove with one hand and snapped back with the other hand. It's rare for the leader of the team to still remember the villain and not be too frightened. At this time, in the classroom of Class 23 of the 5th High School, a sweet-looking girl with a dashing air suddenly raised her eyebrows. Huh. She looked at the messages on her phone with a bit of surprise in her eyes. Has Chin Jinian changed so much? Do you dare to joke with yourself now? Sure enough, that day was not an illusion. She couldn't help but recall her chance encounter with Chin Jinian that day in Tongmuki community. At that time, she felt that the other party's state was completely different from that at school. But at that time, she was busy with her cousin's affairs and had no time to continue chatting with him, so she left in a hurry. But now it seems, the other party has indeed changed a lot. She thought to herself, thought for a while, and started typing. I only arrived at school in the afternoon yesterday, and I had just finished my work at home. Looking at the messages on his phone, Chin Jinian immediately remembered the woman who turned into something like a bug. She was taken away by the night watchman, and it was clearly stated that she would be processed when she was brought back. Thinking of the black mist in the other person's head, Chin Jinian couldn't help but think of that evil young man. Could there be some weird anomaly creature in her head? Judging from the information he has so far, these churches may have an inseparable relationship with anomaly. He frowned, but in the end he didn't ask any more questions, but continued to reply with one hand, okay, I understand. So, you are already late. Come to school quickly. Team leader, I was kidnapped by the quilt. I probably won't be able to go to school today. Please ask for leave. Quote ? Are you kidding me? Really, my quilt may have been infected by anomaly during the blood moon, and now I'm trapped in the bed. I've called the night watchman for help. They said that in this case, you have to close your eyes and breathe evenly. If you get hungry and lose weight for most of the day, you can break free on your own. Quote ? Stop talking, I'll surrender to anomaly first. Leader, help me ask for leave. Thank you. Quote. Chin Jinian did not reply to the letter, put away his cell phone, and concentrated on driving. If he didn't concentrate on driving, his relatives would burst into tears. In the school on the other side, Chen Feifei looked at the messages on her phone and was stunned. Quilt anomaly, kidnapped, wasn't he able to figure it out? This guy. A trace of black line appeared on Chen Feifei's face. While she was speechless, a strange feeling emerged in her heart. Of course she knew that the other party was looking for an excuse to ask for leave, but hearing this excuse made her feel doubly novel. If another classmate who usually had a cheerful personality made such a joke to her, she would be speechless at most. But these words were spoken by Chin Jinian, which made her speechless and felt a little strange at the same time. After all, everyone knows Chin Jinian's situation in the class. Before, he wouldn't even dare to say anything to himself. This, in deep thought, Feifei, are all your 50 groups here? Mubai's voice came from behind. Chen Feifei came back to her senses and looked at Mubai, who was registering not far away. After thinking for a while, she said, Chin Jinian asked for leave. He is not feeling well. Everyone else is here. Hearing Chin Jinian, Mubai was startled for a moment, but quickly nodded, recorded it, and said nothing more. Everyone in the class knew that Chin Jinian was in poor health. It is also normal to take occasional leave. If it were before, Mubai would probably not feel anything at all. But this time, Mubai paused slightly, obviously paying attention. The reason was that Chin Jinian had a conversation with him yesterday. Oddly enough, if other students talked to him, he would probably not take it to heart. But Chin Jinian, this person who had never had a significant presence in the class, suddenly talked to him, which made him quite impressed. Seeing Mubai nod without asking any questions, Chen Feifei looked at the messages on her phone, finally shook her head and put away her phone. Although Chin Jinian's changes surprised her a little, that was all. They are already in their senior year of high school and don't have much time left. They must work harder to get into the university of their choice. After all, everyone has only one chance to take the college entrance examination. If you miss it, there is no chance to do it again. Half an hour later, the dean's car returned to the underground garage. It's almost 8 o'clock. Chin Jinian got out of the car, put on his hood, buried his head, and walked towards the building where the dean's house was. Then I took the elevator to the 27th floor and got off the elevator. When I glanced around, there was no difference from when I left. Qin Jinian looked at the location of 2708. It was almost in the innermost position, far away from the entrance of the stairs. Qin Jinian let out a breath and then waited. He turned around and walked into the corridor, then sat casually on the stairs of the corridor and waited quietly. He didn't know when the people who led the way would come, so he could only use this stupid method to stay guard. Of course, the purpose of squatting is not to kill the opponent, but to follow the opponent for a while, confirm the opponent's identity, and see if there is anything else to gain. The church is very mysterious. He got the mobile phone of the female dean, but her and other people's chat records were basically cleared, only the chat record with the mysterious number from yesterday was retained. If Qin Jinian hadn't taken action in time, I'm afraid, yesterday's records will also be cleared. Therefore, there is still not much gain in intelligence. If there could be one more branch to obtain information, it might have an unexpected effect on his subsequent actions. But when I found the other party's headquarters, I just came to deliver food. So, I still have to use external help. Qin Jinian's eyes flashed, thinking in his mind. People or a whole church, mysterious and anomaly. It is impossible for Qin Jinian alone to rescue Ning Ning. Qin Jinian has always been clear about this. Therefore, from the beginning, he did not plan to do this alone. He needs help from outside forces. In fact, external forces have no other options, only the night watch. The reason why Qin Jinian has not contacted the night watchman yet, but is investigating alone is very simple. Once the night watchman takes action, there will definitely be a lot of noise. As a church of the chaotic evil camp, how could it not pay attention to the movements of the night watchman of the lawful good camp? I'm afraid some of the powerful people inside are being watched all the time. Whether they are being watched or not is not mentioned for now, but if the night watchmen have special actions, the final sect will most likely pay close attention to them. So it would be better for Qin Jinian to investigate on his own secretly first, and then find a way to inform the night watchman after he gets the results. Well, we have to carefully consider how to notify the night watchman. It would be great if we can attract enough attention from the other party and ensure that we are not exposed to the greatest extent. Qin Jinian thought about it. Unconsciously, time passes. I don't know how much time passed before the elevator dinged. Qin Jinian, who had been waiting here for a long time, subconsciously raised his head. After waiting for a while, he quietly walked to the stairs and took a look into the corridor. Then, his eyes flashed slightly and he saw a figure standing in front of the door of 2708. Following a burst of password input and a click sound, the door opened and the figure walked in. Qin Jinian didn't stop, turned around and jumped directly from the stairwell. While the figure was still in the air, several shadows had turned into shadow hands, and they instantly grabbed the handrail of the stairs, allowing Qin Jinian's figure to fall steadily. It's like an octopus climbing ashore, even more flexible than the octopus's tentacles. It only took less than 6 seconds for the person from the 27th floor to reach the first floor. But Qin Jinian didn't even feel the weightlessness and landed steadily. After lightly touching the ground with his toes and standing up easily, Qin Jinian looked up at the bottomless floor, narrowed his eyes slightly, and then nodded with satisfaction. The shadow superpower is very easy to use, and its 1,000 changes, myriad transformations, and its characteristics of being virtual or real have improved its applicable environment by countless levels. For example, when he fell down just now, the place where he needed to grab the handrail was solid, to ensure that Qin Jinian would not fall. Wherever it is not needed, it is empty, it passes directly through the handrails and steps without any stumbling. Between the changes of reality and reality, it is extremely useful regardless of offense or defense. The only pity is that the shadow superpower exists apart from his body. If only he could possess the characteristics of shadow superpower. His eyes flashed slightly, and this is actually very possible. After all, the shadow superpower is just the first awakening now. Who knows if there will be any surprising changes when it is upgraded in the future. And even if the shadow superpower is upgraded, it won't give the body that kind of property. Then there are other authorities. For example, the shadow body that I have seen on the panel before. Maybe, even the body can have the characteristics of shadow. If that were the case, I dare not say that I am directly invincible. But there aren't many things that can easily hurt Qin Jinian. But it's a pity that opening a new authority and getting 10,000 shadow points is a bit confusing. Qin Jinian finally shook his head, stopped thinking about it, and walked to the elevator on the first floor. After taking a few steps, he was suddenly startled, then lowered his head and looked at his feet. There was silence for a while. Have I grown taller? Seeing that his trouser legs could no longer cover his ankles, Qin Jinian scratched his head. It seems that the vitality has begun to gradually appear. It was faster than he thought. Thinking about it, Qin Jinian withdrew his gaze and looked up at an elevator. The elevator screen showed that the elevator was now stopping at the 27th floor. He waited patiently. After about a few minutes, the elevator lit up and came down. Qin Jinian's expression moved, and he came to the stairs, put on his hood, and continued to wait. About 30 seconds later, the elevator reached the first floor. But it didn't stop, but continued. Qin Jinian took one look and without any hesitation, he turned over and jumped downstairs. 2 shadow tentacles shot out instantly, allowing him to fall steadily to the -1 floor. Then he crossed the elevator very quickly, and when the shadow quickly retracted under his feet, he had already reached the parking lot. Sure enough, after he stood behind a pillar in the parking lot, the elevator dinged, the elevator door opened, and a figure walked out. Qin Jinian wore a hood and lowered his head slightly, revealing only a pair of eyes, looking from behind the pillar. What came out was a man in his 30s, wearing a black casual suit, his long hair was a little messy, and he looked a little decadent. Qin Jinian's peeping did not attract his attention. He walked with his head buried in his head. Soon after, he came to a car and pressed the remote control. Qin Jinian watched from a distance, quickly wrote down the license plate number of the vehicle, and quickly ran to where the female dean's car was parked. Fortunately, it's not too far. Soon the vehicle started, and Qin Jinian drove the car very quickly to a position where he could observe the other party. The other person's car hasn't moved yet, and he can be seen playing with his cell phone through the car window. After a long time, the other party started the vehicle and slowly drove out of the parking space. Qin Jinian was not in a hurry, drove his car, and followed slowly. Then the vehicle left the underground garage and merged into the traffic flow. Qin Jinian did not follow closely, he just made sure that the other party's car was always within his field of vision. Watching the other party's car enter the main road and then get on the viaduct, Qin Jinian followed unhurriedly. Ding dong. The cell phone rang. Qin Jinian glanced at the car in front of him and took out 3 cell phones. One is his own, one is the headmistress's, and the other is suspected to be that evil young man from the Night Blood sect. Qin Jinian had always carried his mobile phone with him. He originally planned to find a place to unlock it to see if there was any valuable information inside. But yesterday, he went to class in the morning and went to Qing Lake in the afternoon. As a result, he got the news of Ning Ning's disappearance before dark, but he forgot about the mobile phone. Why not just go find someone to do it? Of course it's because there's no money. I made 1,000 yuan from selling fish, so I decided to find someone to unlock the door. As a result, the phone is now out of battery. I ignored the phone and looked at the one that was ringing. It belongs to the headmistress. A message came. The guide has been sent. What's the situation over there now? Qin Jinian thought for a while and typed with one hand, okay. I have the situation under control. I'm at the police station now. Although he was still driving with one hand, Qin Jinian's mental strength was now at 100, so it was not a problem to do 3 things at once, and he was sent quickly. Okay, if anything unexpected happens, please feel free to contact us. This time, the priests are very concerned about making sure nothing goes wrong. Don't worry, I'm watching. After ending the exchange, Qin Jinian continued to follow the young man. Dark Pupil gave Qin Jinian excellent vision. As long as the opponent did not completely disappear from his sight, he could quickly follow him. As for driving skills, the reaction brought about by 100 spiritual power can catch even bullets. Not to mention a minor issue like driving. Half an hour later, Qin Jinian was still hanging far behind him. Then, the other party got off the viaduct, and Qin Jinian naturally followed. Now this location has reached the edge of the city center and belongs to the development zone. The other party's car drove towards a village in the city. Chin Jinian followed slowly. There were many cars around, so he didn't stand out. After slowly following the other party around the village and the city for a few times, he saw the other party's car stopped in front of a grocery store. Chin Jinian also pulled over and watched quietly. The other party got out of the car and entered the nearby grocery store. There were several people playing cards in the grocery store. Seeing him greeting them familiarly, he waved his hands casually, found a stool and squeezed in. After watching a game, he also joined the game. Chin Jinian glanced at the name of the grocery store. Shangpu Village, Gaoshan Wholesale Department. After waiting in the car for about half an hour, when he saw someone buying something, that person would stand up and get something for the customer. Chin Jinian did not stop any longer, started the vehicle, and slowly drove away from this urban village. Half an hour later, Chin Jinian returned to the dean's home. As soon as I opened the door, I saw something with a faint black mist on the shoe cabinet next to it. His eyes lit up. Road guide. He reached out and picked up the items on the shoe cabinet. The road guide is about the size of a palm. Unexpectedly, it is an irregular-looking oblate stone. There are complex and strange lines on the stones. If you look closely, they look like totems that would appear in ancient tribes. A faint black mist, just entanglement above. Chin Jinian was a little surprised when he picked it up and weighed it gently. Only then did he realize that the guide didn't seem to be very strong, the material seemed to be very brittle, and it might break with a little force. And if you look closely at the black mist inside, it feels like it is trapped by something, barely gathering together. Mubai said that when the road guide is activated, there will be guidance. It seems that it should be crushed directly. I don't know how to guide it. Chin Jinian frowned for a moment, then let out a breath. No matter, let's try it first. At least compared to black cards, the application of this game has at least one direction. Chin Jinian thought about it again and felt that now was not the time to use it. Although there is no clear news that the black market only opens at night. But Chin Jinian judged others by himself, and felt that the black market had the word black attached to it after all. Listening to Mubai's description, he was completely outside the law. The existence of the edge of law. There is a high probability that at night, there will be many people in the black market. And he also had to prepare a little more. Well, for example, a mask to hide his identity. Having stuffed it in his arms all day had deformed the inferior mask, so he had to buy another one. The clothes on my body were obviously one size too short, and my ankles felt cold and uncomfortable, so I had to buy a new set. We'll take action at night. I happened to make 1,000 yuan from selling fish yesterday, so I have startup capital. Immediately Chin Jinian turned around and left the home of the female dean. In the blink of an eye, night falls and the lanterns are lit. In the city center, in an underground parking lot of a shopping mall, inside an SUV. Chin Jinian looked at his brand new outfit. A more fitting black hooded jacket, black casual pants, and black casual shoes. Coupled with a mask whose texture is obviously much better than that one, this time it's not a tanuki but a white faceless man. With this combination, wearing a mask and a hat, walking on the street in broad daylight, the police would probably have to question him again and again as if they were facing a formidable enemy. He put on the mask and admired it, then nodded with satisfaction. Ding dong. The phone rang. Chin Jinian was startled, put the mask on the passenger seat, and then pulled out 3 mobile phones to check. It was his own mobile phone. Xiaonian, how is the situation over there? I can't hold on any longer and the police on duty are about to get off work. The news came from Lin Yun. Sister Yun, it's ready. You go back first. My friend has found some clues. I will contact you later. Chin Jinian quickly replied. Soon. Okay. Then, leave everything to you, Xiaonian. Don't worry. It'll be fine. After soothing him, Chin Jinian put down the phone, took a breath, and picked up the road guide placed on the driver's seat. Whether you can do it or not, it's up to you. He muttered, and then a ray of shadow poked out from the darkness, turned into a shadow hand, and gently pinched the Lu Huayan in his palm. The material of this Lu Huayan was very fragile, but it's not to the point where Chin Jinian can crush it with his bare hands. After all, Chin Jinian has not yet cultivated himself. But in the hands of the shadow tentacles, this thing was like a toy. With just a slight exertion, a soft click sound was heard, and a crack appeared on the road guide. And almost at the same time as the crack appeared, the trapped black mist inside suddenly surged out. The next moment, the panel in front of Chin Jinian began to refresh. You are mentally polluted. Under the influence of authority, dark pupil, all mental pollution originating from the dark world will be exempted. You are exempt from this mental pollution. Closing square bracket. You are mentally polluted. Under the influence of authority, dark pupil, all mental pollution originating from the dark world will be exempted. You are exempt from this mental pollution. Closing square bracket. Chin Jinian was stunned and blinked. Wait a minute, right. This thing uses polluted spirits as a means to lead the way. Chin Jinian was a little confused. How can this be fun? He is immune to mental pollution. Just when Chin Jinian was a little dumbfounded, his expression suddenly changed at the next moment. Hey, these black mist. He looked up and realized that the black mist that emerged was actually condensing and floating straight in one direction. After Chin Jinian was stunned for a moment, he quickly started the vehicle without any hesitation. The underground garage cannot block the black fog, and the black fog cannot turn, nor is it smart enough to guide the way according to the terrain of the garage. But it's not a big problem, because the black mist always points in one direction. Sure enough, after leaving the underground garage, the situation suddenly became clear. The black mist spread in one direction. Chin Jinian quickly followed the direction of its extension and drove. The road was busy with traffic and people coming and going, but no one noticed the existence of the black fog. Even the black mist sometimes passes through some pedestrians. But they don't seem to feel anything. This scene, in Chin Jinian's eyes, is somewhat anomaly. But there was no time to think about it, so he continued to follow. It took about half an hour. The black mist had taken Chin Jinian away from the city, and even crossed the development zone to an area that had not been fully developed. Everything here is strange. Chin Jinian frowned and observed the surroundings while continuing to follow the black mist. Until a certain moment, Chin Jinian suddenly braked and stopped. Then he stared at the world in front of him with wide eyes, a look of surprise in his eyes. In his field of vision, at the end of the black mist, a huge twisted world appeared. The world was pitch black, with countless black mists steaming, twisting, and entanglement. Just like on the blood moon day, when the panel was turned on, the world Chin Jinian saw was exactly the same. He didn't know how far this area extended. Chin Jinian looked up and found that the trees, the ground, and even some houses seemed to be twisting and deforming. Not like a dead thing, but more like a living thing, a monster. Is this the black market? Are you kidding me? Can people really enter this kind of place? Just taking a glance, Chin Jinian felt the creepiness and swallowed his saliva. He seemed to have returned to the day of the blood moon. At the edge of the vision, masses of black mist are like burning black flames, twisting and rising. Just looking at it made him feel a surge of anomaly. He stopped the car and sat in the car, frowning. The black market was found, but whether to go in. He was a little hesitant. Because it feels so ominous here. Just as Chin Jinian was hesitating, a light suddenly flickered in the distance. He subconsciously turned his head and looked. A car was coming from a distance. He was stunned for a moment, but he quickly reacted, turned off the engine, turned off the lights, and opened the driver's door. Bang! As the door closed again, the vehicle was completely powered off and plunged into darkness. Chin Jinian, who was hiding in the darkness, saw that the vehicle in the distance was getting closer and closer. After a few minutes, it stopped not far from his car. Soon, several people got out of the car. Someone spoke, with a somewhat solemn voice. The black market is no different than other places. You must act cautiously and try not to cause trouble if you can. Our goal this time is just to get rid of what we have on hand as soon as possible. Leave immediately after it is over. Do you understand? Clear. Several voices also answered solemnly. Then Chin Jinian saw the leader take a deep breath and nodded, let's go. Then, Chin Jinian saw them walking towards the twisted world. In the process, Chin Jinian discovered that the clothes on these people were almost the same as his. Most of their outfits are mainly black, with various masks on their faces. People who don't know may think they are attending some kind of masquerade. It seems that his previous preparations are not meaningless. In a place like the black market that walks on the edge of the law, everyone is sufficiently vigilant about it, and no one will be stupid enough to enter without making any preparations. At least he'll put on a disguise. Then his tricks will not be too conspicuous in the black market. Qin Jinian thought, but soon stopped thinking about it, and instead watched their next actions seriously. That twisted world. Can you really enter it? No danger. While thinking, those few people have reached the edge of the twisted world. After standing still, the person at the head took out something with his backhand. Although the distance was not close, Qin Jinian could still see clearly that the object was almost the same as the road guide in his hand, only there was a slight difference in shape. There are also some broken marks on it, and there is black mist filling it. Those black mist penetrated into the twisted world ahead. But these people seemed unable to see it. The man took out the road guide and looked at the people around him, then took a deep breath and clenched his fists hard. Click. A soft sound. The road guide in the palm was instantly broken. In Qin Jinian's eyes, the black fog that was originally imprisoned in the road suddenly erupted, like a smoke bomb exploding, and the next moment it penetrated into the twisted world ahead. The large amount of black mist seemed to activate a certain force in the twisted world, forming a funnel-shaped vortex of black mist that was constantly rotating in the blink of an eye. Enter. When the black mist vortex took shape, the person in the head flashed his eyes and shouted in a low voice. After saying that, he stepped into the vortex without hesitation. The other people quickly followed, and in the blink of an eye, they all entered the vortex of black mist. From Qin Jinian's perspective, the twisted world became even more distorted, and the black fog at the edge of the perspective kept rising. When those people completely entered the vortex, in just 10 seconds, the black mist vortex disappeared, and the twisted world returned to its original state in the blink of an eye. And the figures of those people who entered the twisted world suddenly changed in his eyes, as if they suddenly became illusory. As if it turned into something like a shadow. It wasn't until the figures of these people gradually moved away that they gradually disappeared from his sight. Qin Jinian was stunned by this. Entering the twisted world, the bodies of those people suddenly turned into something like a black shadow. This, after being stunned for a long time, Qin Jinian gradually came back to his senses and frowned. The black market was even more mysterious than he initially thought. Couldn't help but look up at this huge twisted world again. After pondering for a while, Qin Jinian let out a breath. Since someone can go in, it means that although this thing looks anomaly, it is not very dangerous. Since others can go in, he can also go in. We are already here, so there is no reason to back down at this time. Thinking of this, Qin Jinian no longer hesitated. He picked up the mask on the passenger side and put it on his face. He looked around in the mirror and made sure there was nothing wrong. Then he got out of the car and finally stood in front of the distorted world. He let out a breath, and the next moment, the shadow tentacles exerted force and crushed Lu Yin directly. Boom! There was a soft sound, the road detonator exploded, and the previous scene happened again. When the black mist vortex appeared, Qin Jinian stepped into it without hesitation. The first time he stepped into the whirlpool world, Qin Jinian felt that the whole world had changed at once. The first is the black fog at the edge of the viewing angle, which suddenly seems to become more active, jumping happily in Qin Jinian's eyes. This made Qin Jinian suddenly return to the time when the blood moon was in the sky a few days ago. At that time, the world he saw was like this. There was black fog at the edge of the perspective, as if black fireworks were beating. At this time, a new description appeared on the panel. You enter the dark side world fragment, and are contaminated by the faint abyss breath. Under the influence of authority, dark pupil, all mental pollution originating from the dark world will be exempted. You are exempt from this mental pollution. Closing square bracket. Dark side, world fragments. Qin Jinian was stunned. So, the black market is in a fragment of another world. It's just a bit unbelievable. He subconsciously turned his head and looked towards the way. Then he discovered that the world behind him became distorted, exactly the same as what he had seen from the outside before. Quote. Qin Jinian was silent for a long time. Finally, he took a long, gentle breath. Qin Jinian's trip was originally to find out some things about this transcendent world, and he had already made some mental expectations for everything that was about to happen. Therefore, although he felt shocked at the moment, he quickly accepted this setting. After all, as a transcendent world where one look can be enough to kill someone, the black market is opening up in another fragment of the world. It's not that unacceptable, right? He simply stopped thinking about it and turned around to look inside. The dark side world, fragments. How is it different from outside? The eyes under the faceless man's mask flashed slightly, and he put aside many questions in his mind and planned to see for himself. The next step was to move forward, but soon Qin Jinian showed some doubts. Because for now, except for the black fog at the edge of the field of vision, the world doesn't seem to be too different from the outside. Oh, by the way, there is also the mental pollution that seems to exist all the time. The panel has been refreshing occasionally. It means that he has always been in the contaminated zone. He can be exempted, but this may not be so friendly to others. But beyond that, at least so far, Qin Jinian hasn't noticed anything wrong. Right now, suddenly, an unprecedented sense of crisis filled Qin Jinian's heart. This sudden sense of crisis came without any warning, but it was so strong that the hairs all over Qin Jinian's body stood up. His expression suddenly changed, and without thinking, the shadow under his feet suddenly spun and turned into a cover, covering him. Almost at the same time as the hood enveloped the body. Boom! A roar suddenly exploded not far away. The next moment, a huge force crashed into the cover transformed by the shadow. Boom! Above the shadow mask, a ball of fire burst out, but it was firmly blocked. But Qin Jinian's expression became extremely ugly, and he looked towards the direction where the gunfire came from. And over there was also a slight exclamation at the same time. It's a superpower. The idea hurts my hands, and the wind is tight. The next moment, Qin Jinian saw several figures suddenly popping out of the wilderness about 100 meters away, then turned around and ran towards the distance at extremely fast speeds. The speed was so fast that Qin Jinian was a little confused. Then I reacted. Was he being beaten and shot? Then his face turned a little dark and his eyelids twitched. If it weren't for the sudden sense of crisis, he would probably have been shot in the head by now. The spot where the shot hit the shadow mask just now happened to be his head. This is to take your own life. But looking at the speed of those people, they had already run hundreds of meters in the blink of an eye. They were all obviously well educated. With Qin Jinian's speed, even if he wanted to catch up, he probably wouldn't be able to catch up now. Suddenly I felt extremely depressed. Since TM's debut, he has been the only one who has taken advantage of others, and today he was actually beaten by someone else, and he still couldn't fight back. He stared intently at the few people who were getting further and further away and soon disappeared. In the end, I can only grit my teeth. Even if you can run fast, don't let me touch you again. I felt angry, but at the same time, I had a clear understanding of the dangers of the black market. This is a world of pure lawlessness, where even if you are walking on the road, you may lose your life. After taking a deep breath, Qin Jinian paused, the shadow mask disappeared, and he continued to move forward. Fortunately, Qin Jinian, who was more alert next time, did not encounter any danger again. And half an hour later, he saw the black market. This is a deserted small town. The town is not large in scale and contains a large number of ruins of buildings. How to describe it? There is a sense of déjà vu that jumps directly from modern urban style to apocalyptic wasteland style. The black market is in this wasteland-like city. There are people coming and going on the wasteland-like streets, but everyone's style of painting is surprisingly consistent, all in black and wearing all kinds of weird masks. Well, Qin Jinian blends into the environment perfectly. Someone has set up a stall here, and there are a dazzling array of things on the stall: weapons, potions, super martial arts, and even some weird animal bones, medicinal materials. Everything you need. Most of the stall owners just sat in front of the stalls, dressed similarly to pedestrians, and kept silent. Only when someone came over to ask about the price, they responded twice. The entire black market atmosphere gives people an indescribable feeling of depression and tension. For example, as soon as Qin Jinian walked to the city gate, he vaguely felt a lot of eyes falling on him. There were complex emotions such as scrutiny and consideration in those eyes. After his mental power reached 100, Qin Jinian vaguely had some strange sensory abilities. This kind of perception is not clear, it seems invisible and intangible. But it is real. For example, the sudden sense of crisis that made the hairs on your hair suddenly explode is one of the manifestations of this kind of perception ability. So although Chin Jinian didn't know exactly who was looking at him, someone was definitely watching. But there was nothing that could be done about it. Now that he was here, he was bound to receive attention. Chin Jinian moved forward calmly. The road guide taught by Zan Yan, the female dean, also said that Ning Ning is at the headquarters, and the headquarters is in the black market. So, is Ning Ning somewhere in the black market now? He looked towards the ruins of the small town in front of him, his eyes moving slightly. But he also knew that it would definitely not work if he acted rashly. This time he came with a very clear goal. Just to get some information. The so-called gathering information does not necessarily mean actually doing something. Get to know the so-called black market, then listen more and see more, talk less and do less. You can actually collect a lot of intelligence. For example, now he knows the essence of the black market. It is a fragment of the dark side world, right? Although he still doesn't know what the so-called dark side world specifically refers to. But at least I have a general guess, direction and basic understanding. A basic understanding is important, because that represents common sense. On his first trip to the black market, Chin Jinian had no specific plans to do anything. He just wanted to see more and learn some common sense about the black market. After he became familiar with it, he could formulate a targeted action plan. Therefore, whether it is making money, cultivating a plan, or delving into the information about the ultimate sect, it will be the next time you enter the black market. This time, he only brought eyes and ears. With this thought in mind, Chin Jinian walked into the black market. He seemed to be looking at the dazzling array of goods on the stalls, but in fact his ears were perked up, listening to the conversations of some people around him. Quote, "Is this the meat of a bloodthirsty dog? Yes. What price? 30,000 £1. Expensive. A ferocious bloodthirsty dog, freshly slaughtered, for this price. Quote, Nothing missing. Indispensable. Quote, £10. Quote, E-level explosive spirit medicine agent, 600,000 apiece. Isn't it too expensive? The Super Martial Arts Alliance only costs 500,000. If it's too expensive, go to Chowumang to buy it. Can it be less? Cannot. Quote, Made. Quote, What material is this knife made of? Made of shallow black feathered iron from the abyss, D-level low grade. How to sell it? One price, 3 million. Can it be less? How much can you offer? 205. Too low. Can I exchange something for something? D-grade super protein, or D-grade dragon blood grass. Quote, I'm going to discuss it. Leave your knife for me. Half an hour at most. If they don't come, I'll buy someone else. Quote, Chin Jinian listened to some conversations that were not loud around him, mostly between customers and stall owners. Unlike in the city outside, they didn't have any small talk, and the stall owner didn't talk at all, he just sat there and waited. The conversation between each other was also simple. What do you want? How much does it cost? Can it be less? This crisp style suits Chin Jinian's taste very well. This is the price. Chin Jinian's face twitched slightly. As expected, he is poor in literature and rich in martial arts. Everything here is related to transcendent, and each one is more expensive than the last. Chin Jinian, who only has 1,000 yuan in his body, said, he cannot understand the world of rich people. It can easily cost hundreds of thousands, and a slightly better one can cost millions. I haven't seen tens of millions yet, but Chin Jinian thought about it and there should be some. It's just tens of millions, so those things are probably more precious. Chin Jinian, who was shot black as soon as he entered, knows that this black market is not a peaceful place. For that kind of thing, neither the seller nor the buyer would want to be targeted. Instead, will you choose to trade privately? For example, Chin Jinian saw several situations where after the two parties made eye contact, they sent people to leave for unknown areas. Well, it's worth mentioning that most of the stalls have more than one person behind them. The stall owner is just the one sitting behind the stall. But behind him, there are usually at least a few or as many as a dozen people wearing black clothes and masks. These people stare at anyone approaching the stall with a clear warning in their eyes. Also, these stalls have a lot of goods, so it's impossible for just one person to come. For example, the people he met outside the black market before were only 7 or 8 people traveling together. They were also carrying some snakeskin bags and the like on their bodies at the time. In addition, the black market environment also prevents most people from acting alone. After all, who knows when you will be shot in the dark? Chin Jinian, the lone traveler, expressed his concern. Watching, listening and walking along the way, Chin Jinian gradually gained a deeper and deeper understanding of the black market. Although he didn't say a word or did anything, he gained a lot of information he wanted. Unconsciously, he came to a deeper part of the black market, where there were still many people. Then he saw a large number of people gathered in front of a billboard, looking at something. With some curiosity, Chin Jinian also walked over, then found a higher position and had a clear look at the situation inside. The notice board is a huge display screen, and on the display screen, some information is scrolling. But after just one glance, Chin Jinian's eyes lit up slightly. For Chin Jinian, the biggest headache now is how to get started. At that time, he was interested in the black market because Mubai said that he made $3 million directly after completing a task in the black market. This directly made Chin Jinian's heart flutter. After arriving here, Chin Jinian has been looking for, what is the so-called mission? How can I get it? And now, he knows. Because what is displayed on the screen in front of you is a variety of tasks. Purchasing mission. Urgent need for D-level or above pure soul formation jade or purification stone, 8 million to purchase. Contact number. 1. You choose the transaction location, and we choose the transaction time. Anonymous transaction. Purchasing mission. Purchase the meat of E-level or above ferocious beasts. The price is high, as much as you want. Contact number. 1. Long-term cooperation is possible, or anonymous transactions are possible. Please indicate long-term cooperation. Ask for help. Clean up the ferocious beasts in City B in the wild. The most ferocious beasts, kill the target to complete the task. Remuneration 13 million. Contact number. 1. Details can be discussed in detail. Anonymous. Notarized by Wanjin Pavilion. Closing parenthesis. Ask for help. Various tasks are slowly declining. Most of these tasks have simple descriptions. But this simple description reveals a lot of information. In addition to the more normal, asking for help, and purchasing tasks. There are also bounties. Heavy reward. The target of the reward, Chin Feng, the director of the Kanglin branch of the Night Watch. The reward amount, 1 billion. The reward has been deposited in Wanjin Pavilion. Use the middle finger of the other party's right hand as a certificate to receive the reward. Reward mission. Reward target, Gao Cheng, CEO of Chengsheng Group. Reward amount, 30 million. The reward has been entered into Wanjin Pavilion. Claim it with Gao Cheng's head. Bounty mission. Bounty target. The price is clearly marked for buying and killing people. Chin Jinian was slightly startled. After thinking about it, he nodded. It really has the characteristics of the black market. If the black market is not illegal and disciplined, is it still called a black market? Only, I didn't expect that the Night Watch director would also be on the bounty list. I don't know who the employer is. The Night Watch, this is the official transcendent violent organization. As the director of a city, he is definitely a big shot in the world of transcendent. He dared to take this job on the black market. He was really bold. I looked at it later and found that there were surprisingly many night watchmen on the list, not just the director. The director's reward is the highest, reaching 1 billion. Other night watchmen are also worth tens of millions or hundreds of millions. Well, basically the people with bounties on this list are all at the Night Watch squad captain level. Ordinary night watchmen seem to be rarely seen. Watching and watching. Suddenly, a reward order appeared in front of Chin Jinian, making him stunned for a moment. Heavy reward. The target of the reward is Night Blood Red Clothed Sacrifice, Yi Crow. Reward amount, 700 million. Note, the identity of the other party is unknown. Based on the other party's Night Blood certificate. Certified by Wanjin Pavilion. The sudden appearance of this information immediately confused Chin Jinian. Night blood red sacrifice. Night crow. Or is it based on the night blood certificate? Bounty. 700 million. Rao was Chin Jinian, and he couldn't come to his senses for a while. After a while, I took out a black card from my pocket. Looking at the word, Night Crow, above, I swallowed hard. That's it. Worth 700 million. Suddenly, groups of beauties in swimsuits, luxury cars and mansions appeared vaguely in front of Chin Jinian's eyes with smiles. After a long while, he let out a long breath, looked at the black card again, and put it into his trouser pocket. After a pause, I felt that this did not seem to be very respectful to 700 million. So he took it out again, put it in the left inner pocket of his jacket, patted it, and then nodded. Then I got a little confused. No, Chin Jinian probably understands the reward for the night watchman. After all, this black market is most likely supported by people from the final sect. The evil chaos and the good law are mortal enemies, and it is completely understandable that they will try their best to attack them. Not to mention the director of the Kanglan City branch. If necessary, the chief director and others would dare to offer a reward. This is not a problem. But what happened to Night Crow? According to the words of the female dean, Night Crow belongs to the Night Blood sect, and the Night Blood sect, just by listening to its name, knows that it must also belong to the evil and chaotic camp. Why is there still internal strife? And judging from the amount of the reward, this Yi Ya's identity is obviously unusual. After all, as the director, Chin Feng, the amount of the reward is only 1 billion. There are actually 700 million Night Crows. No, he is so virtuous. Before the word, can, came out, he was stunned again. Recalling the evil young man I met that night and what happened after that. Finally he had to remain silent. In fact, the opponent is still very strong. In other words, Chin Jinian was careless and underestimated. Chin Jinian's shadow superpower, without detailed information, is indeed very lethal. Not to mention, the thing that popped up in that person's mind at the end also had the ability to summon the gaze of an indescribable thing. The latter, in particular, is simply incomprehensible. If not for the panel, most likely the black hair on his body will be blowing in the wind now. Well, it's worth the price. Chin Jinian finally judged this. Naturally, he doesn't know what price the thing paid for the gaze that summoned the indescribable thing in the end. Of course, these are actually not the point. The point is, judging from this situation, some of Chin Jinian's previous speculations about the church may have some problems. For example, he initially thought that the final Yan sect and the Night Blood sect communicated with each other and had a close relationship. But now it seems that the two may have a certain connection. But the relationship was by no means as close as he imagined. It's very possible that they also have fights with each other. Think about it carefully. Does this seem reasonable? What are they? Church. What do churches generally call other churches? Heresy. If you don't believe in your own God, everything else is heresy. Not believing in your own God, but believing in other gods. That is simply a heresy among heresies. But the current situation is that the Great Shah official should be the strongest on the surface. These churches cannot afford to cause too much trouble, so they are in peace with each other on the surface. They have to deal with the same enemy. If this situation is really big enough, what will be the result? For details, please refer to the history of the Western Middle Ages in the previous century. After reaching such a conclusion, Chin Jinian felt a little more relaxed. After all, if the relationship between these churches is too close, it will not be good news for him who wants to deal with the final sect. But then, he began to figure out what to do next. The 700 million bounty is right there, take it or not. Finally, Chin Jinian took a breath and suppressed the impulse in his heart. This obviously involves a fight between two evil churches. It's better to be careful. Anyway, 700 million won't go anywhere, so it's not too late for him to get some information first and then make a decision. Finally, Chin Jinian's eyes focused on the three words that appeared most frequently on the task list. Wanjin Pavilion. This is obviously a big force and seems to have excellent credibility. Rewards, mission bonuses, it seems that many people have temporarily put their money in this Wanjin Pavilion. Where is the money for the reward for the Red Priest of the Evil Church? The money for the reward for the chief and captain of the Night Watchmen is also placed there. It can be described as a serious black and white take-all. It's quite a bit unbridled. Don't know what is behind this. Qin Jinian thought curiously. Then he lamented that in the world of Transcendent, he still didn't understand anything. You have to collect a lot of information first. I thought to myself and continued to watch. Soon, he discovered that some men in black would go to the side after watching the screen for a while, discussing something in a low voice with the people around them. Finally we left here together. Apparently we had taken a fancy to a certain mission and planned to contact the employer. Qin Jinian observed for a while and felt that it would be of little use to continue observing like this. It would be best for him to take on a task. On the one hand, he could collect more information in a more specific manner. On the other hand, let's solve our current dilemma first. Where is the 700 million? But Qin Jinian dare not move for the time being. And the 1,000 yuan earned from selling fish the day before yesterday has now been spent for 77 or 88 yuan, and turned into the current outfit. He needed money urgently, otherwise, the next step cannot be taken at all. With this thought in mind, he looked at the taskbar and began to look for tasks that suited him. The first thing to eliminate is the bounty missions. These bounty missions are all about killing people, and the target Qin Jinian doesn't know them yet, so he is not sure whether they should be killed. Although I thought killers were cool when watching movies, in reality, it was different. Qin Jinian was not willing to kill innocent people indiscriminately unless he had to. But most of the remaining ones are asking for help, such as what kind of genetic medicine, what kind of super martial arts, what kind of ferocious beast materials. Qin Jinian scratched his head a little. It seems like he doesn't know much about these. What to do? While he was hesitating, he suddenly heard a small voice in his ear. Target left. Looking sideways, he saw a man in black whispering to his accomplice not far from him. Both of them were wearing masks, one with a pig head mask and the other with a monkey mask. They were in a relatively remote corner, but very close to Qin Jinian, just enough to hear their voices. The man in the monkey mask was speaking. When the man in the pig head mask heard the words, his exposed eyes suddenly lit up. Are you sure there is only one person? Sure. Walk. The conversation between the two was extremely simple. After finishing speaking, they left in a hurry. Qin Jinian was a little dazed at first, but he came to his senses the next moment. Is this going to do some black shooting? Thinking of this, Qin Jinian's eyelids twitched slightly. He had not forgotten that he was shot as soon as he entered the black market. It seems that robbery is common in the black market. Tribulation. Qin Jinian suddenly had a thought. He didn't accept the reward list because he didn't want to kill innocent people indiscriminately. But these robbers, but it's not within the scope of innocent that Qin Jinian knows. Thinking of this, Qin Jinian's eyes flashed, and after just a moment, he made a decision. He watched the two people leaving, followed slowly and calmly. To be honest, someone shot me in the face today, but while Qin Jinian was angry, he also discovered another thing. That is, the intensity of the shadow superpower seems to be far stronger than he expected. The sound of that shot at that time was obviously a very powerful firearm like a sniper rifle. As a result, the shadow mask that the shadow turned into blocked it easily. It didn't look any different from the anomaly that resisted those bugs that day. This kind of intensity can be said to completely exceed his expectations for shadow superpowers. That is to say, there may be some deviations in his understanding of his own strength. It's possible that not just cats and dogs can break through one's own defenses. After this realization appeared, Qin Jinian was actually very excited. In this anomaly world, the stronger the better. Facts have proven that most of the robbers are bullies. When Qin Jinian followed the two of them and almost walked out of the black market, he found that the two of them were meeting with 3 other people. These 3 people are also dressed in black and wearing masks. Except for the monkey and the pig head, the remaining 3 people were wearing a unicorn mask. One was wearing a mask of a bearded man, and the other was a white faceless man's mask that was somewhat similar to Qin Jinian. After these 5 images were put together, Qin Jinian was a little confused. This is, have 5 masters and apprentices gathered together. The expression under Qin Jinian's mask is a little weird. Just as he was thinking about it, the 5 masters and apprentices were discussing something in a low voice at the door of the black market. Now that he was far away, he couldn't hear the content. Until a certain moment, the man in the big man's mask suddenly winked at several people. Several people calmly turned their heads slightly and locked eyes on someone in the crowd with their peripheral vision. Qin Jinian secretly observed several people throughout the process, so he naturally noticed the look in the big man's mask and followed him calmly. Then I saw a lone figure in the crowd. That man also wore a mask, but it was a black cartoon image. Qin Jinian did not recognize what it was. But it's not important. What's important is this the fat sheep they're targeting? I wonder if there's something on him that they're interested in. Qin Jinian looked at the black masked man with twinkling eyes. Although the conversation between the monkey and the pig head was brief, it could still be judged that they were eyeing a target with purpose, rather than randomly selecting it. But seeing that this man had nothing in his hands, he had a long knife hanging on his waist, and he didn't know what was on him that was being targeted. The man seemed to be very wary. His eyes kept glancing left and right as he walked, as if he was judging whether someone was staring at him. But the 5 masters and apprentices were obviously experts in this area. They only used their peripheral vision to spy on their opponents, and they were slightly separated from each other. They seemed to be standing casually, watching the stalls around them, so the man in the black mask did not notice them. Finally, the man in the black mask walked out of the small town where the black market was located alone. When he walked far away, the 5 masters and disciples remained calm and slowly walked out of the small town. Behind them, Qin Jinian naturally followed them as if unintentionally. Qin Jinian licked his lips, naturally feeling a little expectant and nervous. It's not the first time to kill someone, but it's the first time to do something like robbery and murder. I'm really excited to say that. As we moved further away from the small town, the surrounding area became more and more desolate. Looking at the black mist steaming at the edge of the perspective, and the twisted world in the distance, Qin Jinian was still a little uncomfortable with it. What exactly are the so-called fragments of the dark side world? He thought. The 5 masters and apprentices in front have been following the lone traveler from a distance. They are obviously very experienced in this, and they do not get together and move forward separately. And because they were dressed in black, it was actually difficult to spot them in this somewhat desolate world without careful observation. Of course, they also didn't notice Qin Jinian, who was following them about 100 meters away. Although they were vigilant enough, someone kept looking back from time to time during the tracking process. But darkness has become Qin Jinian's best obstacle. Who made his superpower shadow control? As long as the dark shadow covers his body, let alone 100 meters, 10 meters or 20 meters, it is difficult to see his figure clearly without looking carefully. Although it is not completely invisible, it is still useful. After walking for about half an hour, there was no one else around. Qin Jinian saw that the man wearing the faceless mask put down a bag on his shoulder, and then squatted on the ground. What are you doing? After looking at it in confusion for a while, I found that there was suddenly a long thing on the other person's hand. Then I realized, this guy is assembling a gun. Is this about to take action? Qin Jinian's eyes narrowed, and he saw that several people who were originally scattered all took out their weapons. Almost always guns. In fact, in the low-level super martial arts stage, firearms are more popular than cold weapons. After all, range is the truth. 10 steps away, the gun is fast. Within 10 steps, the gun is accurate and fast. That's the truth. But when the cultivation level reaches a certain level, thermal weapons will gradually be eliminated. Without him, as the cultivation level becomes deeper and deeper, the strength of the human body becomes stronger and stronger. Let alone firearms, even cannonballs are all suitable. Super martial artist doesn't have much damage anymore. And against anomaly, firearms are even more powerless. Some anomaly are physically strong enough to ignore firearms. Some simply have no entity, so there's no need to be afraid. Of course, this refers to ordinary firearms and ordinary people. Bullets made of special materials, or superpowers with the ability to energize bullets, are not included in this list. At this moment, the 5 masters and disciples all took out their weapons, and the one wearing the faceless mask was already squatting on the spot and setting up his gun. Qin Jinian's eyes flashed, and then he quietly moved forward, approaching behind the 5 people. At some point, boom, there was a roar, and fire erupted from the gun in the faceless man's hand. The lone black-faced man about 300 meters away suddenly had his head explode with a bang, spurting out a large amount of blood. He didn't even have a chance to groan, and fell to the ground directly. Succeeded. The faceless man's eyes suddenly lit up, and he seemed completely unburdened by the fact that he shot a stranger to death. This made Qin Jinian, who had just approached about 50 meters behind them, be stunned for a moment, and then looked at the black-masked man in the distance. He was silent for a moment, then quickened his pace a little. "I didn't expect it to be so easy. Let's go, get out of here as soon as you get something," the faceless man whispered excitedly. The other 4 people were also very excited, and they all nodded, and then stood up one after another, planning to go over and grab the goods, and run away. They had done this many times, and they knew the truth behind the change. Just about to move, the faceless man quickly put away the firearm without disassembling it, and had to go over to get the goods first. But right now, a shrill scream suddenly exploded in his ears. But the screams lasted for a moment, then stopped abruptly, and then there was the sound of heavy objects falling to the ground. The faceless man was stunned for only a moment, and then the hairs on his back suddenly stood up. He had been shooting illegally in this black market not once or twice, and he knew very well what he and others were encountering. "Madhu, you are actually taking advantage of others." He was shocked, but he did not look back immediately. Instead, he rushed forward and shouted, "The enemy! Attack!" Hasn't been spoken yet. He heard 3 shrill screams in succession, but the screams stopped abruptly. He suddenly turned his head in horror, and then saw an incredible scene. Behind him, his 4 accomplices had all lost their heads. A dark unknown object turned into tentacles and entangled on the bodies of his 4 accomplices. It was tipped with spikes that pierced their chests. However, there is a second black tentacle, which is a sharp blade, dancing around them. Almost instantly, he imagined the scene just now. Something dark came from the darkness without warning, and instantly penetrated the chests of his 4 accomplices. Then when they screamed subconsciously, the second dark tentacle turned into a sharp blade and cut off their heads without mercy. Looking at the 4 cavities spurting blood, the face under the mask of the faceless man was completely pale. He was not frightened by the horrific scene in front of him. It was because he realized who it was that took action against them. Super person. He was trembling all over, and the excitement he had just felt turned into a bone-chilling cold at this moment. What made him feel even more chilled was that he finally discovered that there was something cold and dark on his body, an entanglement, his legs, hands, torso, and even his head. And he didn't even know when these things appeared. Wait a minute. He threw away the gun in his hand almost instantly, raised his hands high, and shouted, "I don't want the goods anymore, I have the money, and I will buy my life." A cold touch appeared on his neck. He froze and turned his head slightly. Then, the fear in his eyes seemed to overflow. Because at some point, a sharp black blade appeared on his neck. It is very possible that if he had not made a decisive decision to pay for his life, then now, his head, like a few of his companions, would be rolling happily on the ground. The air seemed to be stagnant, the faceless man was trembling all over, and he felt that his legs were no longer his. He has experienced life and death fights before, but this is the first time for him to see a scene like today. Even now, he hasn't seen where the enemy is. Time seemed to pass extremely slowly at this moment, and 1 second was like a century. Just when the faceless man was soaked with sweat, a change finally occurred in the field. The dark thing entangling the corpses of several people slowly retracted into the darkness, looking like a living thing. But the faceless man didn't feel at ease at all, because the dark thing in him still existed. "How much do you plan to spend on your life?" A cold voice appeared, but the faceless man still didn't see where the other person was. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead, knowing that he was meeting a big boss that he couldn't mess with at all. "I am afraid that among superpowers, they are all extremely powerful beings." He judged in his heart, but he was extremely decisive in his mouth. He did not look around to find the speaker. He looked straight ahead and said loudly, 10 million. I will buy my life for 10 million. 10 million, his heart was bleeding. But after realizing that the other party was a super boss, he knew that he couldn't save this money. Would a person with superpowers value a mere few million? The scene suddenly became quiet, and the faceless people were trembling, as if they were prisoners waiting for the sentence. The faceless man's decisive reaction was actually a bit beyond Qin Jinian's expectations. He decisively threw away his gun and gave up resistance. He spoke decisively, but instead of begging for mercy, he offered him a profit and paid for his life. Even after Qin Jinian spoke, he didn't look sideways, suppressing his instinct of curiosity, and didn't try to look for Qin Jinian even when he clearly didn't see him. In this series of operations, every step was a sign of weakness and begging for life. The strong desire to survive was almost overflowing. During the few seconds when Qin Jinian was silent, the faceless man was trembling all over, but he tried hard to keep his legs from falling. Finally, "How can I give you the money?" the other party spoke. But the question asked made the faceless man stunned for a moment. But he reacted quickly and said without hesitation, "Wanjin Pavilion, bearer card, you can withdraw it at any time with the card." The other side fell silent again. Cold sweat kept falling from the faceless man's forehead. While he was feeling uneasy, his heart was racing. He instantly judged that it looked like this boss was coming to the black market for the first time. There is such speculation because the question asked by the other party belongs to black market common sense. The vast majority of people who come to the black market hide their identities. After all, many of the transactions done here are also prohibited outside. They are not visible to the light. If you don't hide your identity, you are likely to get into trouble. But everyone comes here just to make money. Once the identity is hidden, it will be difficult to carry out transactions. After all, transactions involving tens of millions or hundreds of millions are impossible, and it is impossible to bring cash. That's inconvenient and unsafe. However, if you transfer money through a bank, it is very easy to expose your identity information. Even if you borrow someone else's name, it will leave traces and is not safe. Therefore, Wanjin Pavilion has become the trading platform for almost all black markets. The background of Wanjin Pavilion is very mysterious, and its origin is almost unknown. We only know that since the beginning of the black market, all matters related to money have been completed in Wanjin Pavilion. Wanjin Pavilion has an excellent reputation and high credibility. The money stored there can be freely withdrawn at any time as long as you show the receipt. And it's very safe. So far, there has not been any case where a customer's identity was exposed due to problems with Wanjin Pavilion. It can be seen that Wanjin Pavilion attaches absolute importance to this aspect. There are many ways to withdraw money. If you are not afraid of exposing your identity, you can directly ask Wanjin Pavilion to remit money to the designated account. If you are afraid of exposing your identity, you can also directly use an account opened in the name of Wanjin Pavilion. The account owner's information belongs to someone else, but the money in it belongs to you and can be used freely. If you are still worried, then there is one more procedure. Wanjin Pavilion will transfer the money to some legal international gambling sites, and then give you enough chips. These chips are not linked to your identity, and you can exchange them yourself. In this way, the money becomes directly earned by you and cannot be traced at all. Of course, Wanjin Pavilion charges different handling fees for different withdrawal methods. Direct transfer is the easiest way and only charges a 1% handling fee. Secondly, there is a 5% handling fee for using Wanjin's account. The most expensive ones are the ones that need to be resold. Because it requires operation behind the scenes, which is more troublesome. This service is only enabled by Wanjin Pavilion for transactions with an amount exceeding 5 million. And a 1/10 handling fee is required. All of the above are common sense in the black market. Therefore, if you are often involved in the black market, when you hear him talk about spending money to buy your life, you will definitely know that the way he is referring to is the anonymous card of the Wanjin Pavilion. But the other party asks such a common sense question, which shows that the other party does not know this common sense. That can only be people who come to the black market for the first time or rarely come to the black market. Qin Jinian probably didn't expect that a single question of his could allow the other party to analyze so many things in an instant. It turns out that no one is a fool. And the reason why he thinks so much is because the faceless man is now preoccupied with how to survive. This boss's murderous intent is so terrifying. As soon as he started, 4 of the 5 people lost their heads. I guess if he shouts slower, he is one of them now. But now, His life and death only depend on the other person's thoughts. Therefore, he must find a way to improve his chances of survival. So the fact that the other party comes to the black market for the first time, can we take advantage of it? The other party doesn't even know such a common sense question. Is it reasonable to infer that this boss is a loner who accidentally entered the black market and doesn't understand everything in the black market? Otherwise, if there is a guide, how could he not even tell the most critical thing like how to trade on the black market? In this way, he seems to be useful. He dare not say anything else, but in terms of his understanding of the black market, he thinks he knows it relatively well. Thinking of this, seeing that the other party was still silent and seemed to be thinking about whether to kill him, the faceless man felt that he could not wait passively. He gritted his teeth decisively and said, "Boss, I know I shouldn't speculate randomly, but I want to survive, so I can only try my best to let the boss see my role. If I guessed correctly, the boss should be, is this your first time in the black market?" The sudden opening of the faceless man made Qin Jinian, who was deep in thought, startled for a moment. After thinking about it for a moment, he asked, "Why do you see that?" Immediately, the faceless man quickly stated his guess, and finally said, "So I would venture to guess that this should be the first time for the boss to come to the black market." After hearing what the other party said, Qin Jinian was stunned for a moment, and then felt a little helpless. This is the importance of common sense. People who know what they do and those who don't can tell others as soon as they open their mouths. This is called showing cowardice. Why did Qin Jinian's action plan for himself when he first came in be, listen more, read more, speak less and do less? It's my first time here, so what? But the first time you come to the black market is actually not that important. Qin Jinian doesn't want to show his timidity, because he is afraid that some people will stare at him for no reason and think that he is fat, which will cause some uncontrollable things. After all, this black market is probably the territory of the Zhongyan sect, isn't it? But the first time in the black market itself is actually not a big deal. Who hasn't had a first time? Boss, what I want to say is that it is your first time to come to the black market. With your strength, you must not be afraid of anything. But people have their own paths, and dogs have their own paths. I know a lot about the black market, so I ask myself. I am working alone in the black market, so I will definitely need some help to run errands. What I am asking for is this opportunity. Please give me a chance to live, boss." The faceless man expressed his thoughts clearly and neatly. The posture is extremely low. What he said really made Qin Jinian startled. And then he felt a little moved. In order to search for the black market these 2 days, Qin Jinian honestly felt that he had no way to get started. The biggest reason is, he is a loner and seriously lacks intelligence support. I am completely confused about everything in the world of Transcendent. If you want to get started, you don't know where to start, and there isn't even a place for consultation. I can only explore slowly by myself. To be honest, I wasted a lot of time and even felt a bit embarrassed that I had so many things but didn't know where to start. Speaking of which, it seemed as if there was a road right in front of him. It looked like a smooth road. That is to expose the identity of the superpower. As long as he goes to school and reports his awakening of superpowers, he will not only be shocked, but he may also receive attention from the school and even the country. In this way, he can easily step into the transcendent world and obtain a large amount of intelligence and resources. It seemed that all his current worries would be solved in one fell swoop. But whenever this idea comes to mind, a strong resistance will emerge in Qin Jinian's heart. He resisted exposing himself naked to the public gaze. Qin Jinian has analyzed the origin of this resistance before, and ultimately believed that it was caused by lack of strength. The simplest question: if his identity as a superpower is exposed, it will attract not only attention, but also malice. Does he have any countermeasures? Forgive him for being cautious and almost timid. It seems that some people have exposed their superpowers. Why is it okay, when he comes here, this and that happen? The key point is that if someone else has superpowers and they are exposed, there will only be benefits and no harm, or in other words, the benefits outweigh the disadvantages. The country's training, various resources, and skills are all delivered to your door. No matter what the danger is, people are willing to accept it. Of course that person is willing to be exposed. Not only must it be exposed, but it must be widely publicized to ensure that the country takes it seriously. But what about Qin Jinian? He has his back to the panel and has run 3 authorities so far. Dark pupil makes him immune to the mental pollution of the dark world. Shadow control gives him a foothold in this dangerous world. Shadow devour made him grow from a weakling to where he is now in just a few days. Not to mention there are more unlocked authority waiting for him to explore in the panel. To put it bluntly, he has now mastered the most advanced power in the world. Although this power is still in a seed state, it needs time to sprout and grow. But the foundation is already there. In this case, he who has not yet grown up, reveals his identity as a superpower and enters the public eye. Does the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? He already has it. What he lacks now is just resources. And where are there no such things as resources? Do you have to expose yourself? It's just that it's easier to get it if the state provides it, but it's more troublesome to find it yourself. But look at the bounty lists on the black market. How many of the people with official backgrounds are there? Is it useful to rely on the country? The difference is that some people want your life. And because of your official status, your personal information is simply transparent in the eyes of others. I won't kill you, just because I have enough power and can't kill you. And what about the evil and chaotic camp? Not only are there few people with bounties on them, but most of the notes are unknown identity. In other words, even if someone wants to accept the bounty, no one can be found. Who lives more relaxed and comfortable? Anyway, Qin Jinian prefers the latter. Maybe one day he will also yearn for the feeling of being in the spotlight. The premise must be that he feels that his strength is enough. Anyway, for now, Qin Jinian just wants to stay in retreat. Do something secretly while you can. Even because of the lack of resources and intelligence, he felt somewhat difficult. But it is better to be down to earth. Therefore, the faceless man's proposal really made Qin Jinian a little tempted. He really knew very little about the information on the black market. Not to mention other things, just the door of the Wanjin Pavilion. If it's open, he doesn't know. If there is no one to guide you, you will be in trouble again if you go to find out on your own. Not to mention there are others. As a veteran of the black market, this faceless man's knowledge of the black market must be far beyond Qin Jinian's. It would indeed be a good thing for Qin Jinian if he could get the information he had. But let him go. Qin Jinian's eyes hidden in the dark shadows flickered slightly, and he looked at the corpses around him, and then at the unlucky guy in the distance who was robbed by them, but was simply shot in the head. I really hesitated for a while. The long silence made the faceless man's heart become heavier and heavier, and the cold sweat on his forehead became more and more intense. At a certain moment, he realized that he was dead if he continued like this. Because the other party has not answered until now, he must be hesitating, and the longer he hesitates, the more dangerous he is. Without him, what he just said made the other party hesitate, which meant that the other party was a little moved. But the longer he hesitates, it means that the heartbeat at that moment was suppressed by the other party, and then he was weighing the pros and cons. But there is a high probability that after some weighing, the initial idea will prevail. And once the initial thought takes over, then. Thinking of this, the face under the mask of the faceless man gritted his teeth. He knew that he had to do something, so that the boss's hesitation completely turned to his side. Immediately, he no longer hesitated, suddenly reached out and took off the mask from his face. As soon as he moved, the shadow moved almost instantly, and the faceless man quickly shouted, "Boss, if you are attacked, I have no other intention. I took off the mask to reassure you, boss." Quote, "Boss, my name is Luan. I am a native of Kandlin City. I have opened a small company locally. If you are worried, you can go check it out with me. I am just saying this to reassure you. I am not here to get away. I deliberately said what I just said to deceive the boss. Now, boss, you know my identity. From now on, if the boss feels that I have done something wrong, you can take my life at any time." Faceless man, Luan said loudly and urgently. The shadow beside him paused slightly and made no next move. Luan is probably in his 40s, looks a bit rough, and has a beard. But at this moment, there was cold sweat on his forehead, his face was a little pale, and he looked a little embarrassed. After a while, "I really underestimated you, your head is temporarily resting on your neck." Qin Jinian was a little helpless. He could see that this Luan was really no ordinary person. From realizing the danger to giving up his gun to save his life. After this series of operations, he actually found a way to break the situation. Because he really dispelled Qin Jinian's murderous intention. You must know that Qin Jinian moved with the intention of killing him at the beginning. The reason why he was a few steps behind and killed Luan was because he wanted to get some information first. But before he spoke, Luan, through his series of performances, actually made him give up the idea of killing him. At least, it's been given up for now. But such a person is indeed what I need at the moment. As for the matter of robbery, Qin Jinian looked at the unfortunate guy in the distance and finally shook his head. After all, he is not a policeman. Although he sympathizes with the other party, Luan is of great use to him now. After receiving Qin Jinian's words, Luan immediately sat down on the ground, his legs were shaking, and with a smile on his face that was uglier than crying, thank you, boss. Look at this thing, do you recognize it? Just when Luan was still congratulating himself for surviving, a dark tentacle appeared next to him, and there was something on the tentacle. He was slightly startled, and subconsciously took it to take a look. The next moment, he was stunned, and then blurted out in almost disbelief, Eternal Road Guide. This is Night Crow, Night Blood Red Clothes, Night Blood Clothes, Crow's Night Blood Certificate, boss, you. He was extremely horrified and looked towards the direction where Qin Jinian's voice came from. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.